A beautiful day like any other beautiful day. In the Imperial Garden, there were two beautiful girls like two dolls peeking around in the Imperial Garden. It seemed they were hiding from someone. Both made attempts to disguise themselves, but not significantly. The little maid behind softly called out to her young mistress. The maid Bao used a face that was 3 parts helpless and 7 parts like a father to speak to her young mistress. Even if you want to meet His Highness the Crown Prince, you can't just sit here and wait. This is not proper. What if we anger His Highness the Crown Prince? However, that stubborn young mistress still had no intention of leaving her hiding place. She spoke up, "I've been in the palace for half a year now. His Highness the Crown Prince hasn't even looked at me once. If I don't think of something, I'll never get to meet him in this lifetime." As she spoke, she kept staring ahead as if not to miss the chance of encountering the Crown Prince. Throughout history, there's never been such a way of making an impression. Bao still tried to persuade her mistress. "Even so, you still can't." But before she could finish her sentence, her mistress quickly raised her hand to her mouth, signaling her to be quiet. "Don't say any more," making Bao instinctively raise her hand to cover her own mouth. The sound of a man's footsteps approached. The young mistress whispered, "He's here." A man appeared before them, wearing the Crown Prince's headdress, surrounded by maids and eunuchs escorting him. His face was dignified and cold. This was the male lead the young mistress had been waiting for. Looking closer, besides his cold handsomeness, our Crown Prince concealed a pair of melancholic eyes capable of melting countless maiden hearts. He truly inherited all the good genes from his parents. The young mistress lowered her face and silently counted down, 3, 2. When she reached 1, she tossed aside the tree branch. She shot out towards the Crown Prince as fast as a little squirrel, to the astonishment of the maid Bao. As the Crown Prince was walking, suddenly there came a desperate cry from somewhere, "Your Highness the Crown Prince." Then out of nowhere, a little squirrel leaped towards the Crown Prince, startling him with surprise. But being the Crown Prince, how could he let an unidentified object get so close? With a light turn of his body, the Crown Prince dodged the little squirrel. As for the little squirrel, the young mistress, instead of pouncing on the Crown Prince, she ended up face-planting. It was not a very safe landing. Face in the ground, bottom up in the air, right in front of the Crown Prince. Well, it was certainly an unforgettable impression. Witnessing the entire action scene that just unfolded, the maid Bao could only cover her face and cry miserably. "We're doomed. This time, the young mistress is surely dead." Meanwhile, looking at the crumpled heap of a woman before him, the court ladies gasped in panic, letting out soft "Audaces." As for the eunuch attending the Crown Prince, he rushed out to shield the Crown Prince with his body. His mouth shouted, "Who are you to dare ambush His Highness the Crown Prince?" Only the Crown Prince's face remained unchanged, still as cold as if preserved in ice. There are encounters that are beautifully magnificent, but there are also meetings that make one wish to be paralyzed. At this moment, our female lead was suppressing her pain. Clenching her fists, she clumsily crawled up in a pitiful manner. No, can we fast forward this part to preserve the female lead's dignity? Our Crown Prince's expression remained unchanged from start to finish. He coldly looked down at the woman below. She, choking up, said, "Your Highness the Crown Prince, don't you remember your servant?" Her face full of grievance, eyes brimming with tears, she continued, "Your servant is Chu Luongda. So this is Chu He, the Chu Luongda from the Crown Prince's residence." 1 minute and 30 seconds. The Crown Prince began to search his memory to figure out who this lady before him was. He looked up at the Crown Prince expectantly, but the blank expression that lingered on His Highness the Crown Prince's face made Chu Luongda realize that indeed he didn't remember. Still maintaining her pretend grievance from earlier, she silently bowed her head in defeat, thinking it was not unexpected. State affairs were more important. Thinking this, she decided not to beat around the bush. She went straight to the main point. "Your servant knows Your Highness is going hunting with the Emperor today." As she spoke, she produced a small talisman, respectfully offering the talisman to the Crown Prince. He continued, "The outside world is full of dangers. Your servant worries for Your Highness's safety. I specially requested this protective talisman for you. Please accept it." Her expression and the look in her eyes as she gazed at the Crown Prince were extremely earnest. To outsiders, this action would seem like a gesture of care, even loyalty. But to those around the crown prince, this was an action that toyed with one's life. Everyone who heard the words protective talisman immediately felt their souls wanting to leave their bodies out of fear. They all thought to themselves, everyone knows His Highness the Crown Prince hates these strange things the most. Now, Tu Luongda dares to offer the Crown Prince a protective talisman. Does she find her life too long? The eunuch trembled beside him, anxiously watching the Crown Prince's expression. As for him, he coldly said, "Step aside." Without even glancing at the talisman he was offering. Seeing that she didn't move, he angrily shouted, "Guards!" Quick as lightning, 2 guards rushed forward, ready to drag Tu away. But she was no slouch either. She was just as fast, evading the reaching hands of the 2 guards. She lunged forward, shouting, "Your Highness." She rushed to kneel at the Crown Prince's feet and cried out desperately, "Please let your servant finish speaking, Your Highness." But her face showed no trace of grievance. Instead, it was the expression of someone determined to achieve their goal without regard for dignity. She grabbed the Crown Prince's robe, crying out urgently as if her father hadn't written a will to divide the inheritance. "Today, Your Highness's brow looks ominous. I fear there may be misfortune. Please, carry this protective talisman with you. It will protect you from calamity." She kept wailing, oblivious to the Crown Prince's darkening expression. The other attendants' faces were no different from the illustration of the famous The Scream painting by some renowned artist. His Highness the Crown Prince was stunned. This was truly a situation he had never encountered before. He thought to himself, in my 18 years of life, no one has ever been so bold. However, no matter how desperate He's words were, the Crown Prince maintained his attitude. As if he were frozen, he coldly said, "Take her away." Then he quickly walked away. His subordinates hurriedly obeyed, saying, "Yes, Your Highness." Then they quickly followed him, leaving Tu Luongda held firmly by the roadside. He's resilience was indeed remarkable. Though she was being dragged away, she still tried to salvage the situation by shouting, "Your Highness, you must be careful. Someone is plotting to harm you." The Crown Prince ignored those words, turning his back and thinking to himself, "Today I still have to go hunting with the Emperor. I can't waste time." The anger of Luo Qinghan rose like billowing smoke, but he had to leave angrily with his entourage. He thought to himself, if it weren't for fear of being late, I would have beheaded her and returned to the Crown Prince's residence. Not just in the Eastern Palace, but in the entire Imperial Palace. News like today's spread faster than wildfire. The people in the Crown Prince's residence buzzed with gossip, creating sensational headlines no different from news-hungry reporters. Hey, have you heard? Tu Luongda actually dared to block the Crown Prince's path. Then she gave a talisman to the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince was so angry he had her locked in the cold palace. Elsewhere, they discussed her background. Her profile spread quickly. The daughter of General Tu, named Tu He. She's been in the palace for half a year now, but she's never met the Crown Prince even once. Usually, she just stays in Qingge Palace, eating and waiting to die. She doesn't compete for anything. But unexpectedly, today she dared to block the Crown Prince's path. She even spouted nonsense about the Crown Prince facing misfortune. This time, she's definitely done for. When many people talk, it becomes a marketplace. With so many people discussing, this place officially became a large-scale shopping center, no less. At this moment, the creator of the hot news, the main character of all the discussions, Tu He, was leisurely eating sunflower seeds, ignoring all the gossip. Looking at the overall dilapidated state of the pavilion, cobwebs and dust everywhere, it was clear she wasn't favored. But Tu didn't find this place bothersome. She didn't even consider it a big deal. She calmly continued eating sunflower seeds and spitting out the shells. Despite the desperate calls of her attending maid, Bao Cam was full of enthusiasm, ready to push her mistress to compete for the top. But Tu he was like a lazy gamer. This game, she only liked to grind for free, never willing to pay to win. She breathed like photosynthesis, just to exist, but didn't care about competing for favor. She especially didn't bother climbing the ranks at this moment. Seeing her mistress like this, Bao Cam, as usual, could only lament and cry silently. I know you don't want to compete for favor, living peacefully for these past 6 months. I also know you were in the mood to compete today, but this way of competing is a bit too extreme. The Crown Prince is angry and locked us in this rotten pavilion. Tell me, how are we supposed to live now? Tu Luongda, born under the sign of the salted fish, remained nonchalant, continuing to spit out sunflower seed shells, and calmly replied, "We'll live as we did before." Bao Cam's face showed 7 parts confusion and 3 parts indigestion. That is, she couldn't digest the thoughts in her mistress's head. Bao Cam asked curiously, "If you want to live as before, why did you try to compete for favor today and cling to the crown prince's legs?" After finishing her sunflower seeds, Tu Luong calmly dusted off her hands and said, "I told you already." Today his brow looked ominous. He's likely to face misfortune right now. Readers can take a closer look at the Crown Princess Tu Luongda. Clearly, her entry into the Eastern Palace wasn't a coincidence, because this beauty is truly too stunning. It seems her indifference to competing for favor or her slovenly behavior, not caring about her image earlier, made people fail to notice. Truly, Tu He was a great beauty at this moment. The great beauty, Tu gently answered her attending maid. "I just wanted to remind him to be careful, that's all." But it seemed that, having lived in despair for so long, Bao Cam immediately looked at her with suspicious eyes and thought to herself, "You think I'd believe that?" The little maid was frowning with worry as she said, "Now you must find a way to make the crown prince forgive you." Meanwhile, Tu He put on a gluttonous face and said something completely unrelated. "Tonight I want to eat spicy hot pot with lots of chili." Truly at a loss for words. While she was racking her brains to scheme a way out of their current situation, her mistress was only babbling about food. Unable to contain her anger, Bao Cam shouted, "I'm telling you to find a way to make the crown prince forgive you, not about eating." Seeing her maid angry, Tu He put on a pitiful face. Her eyes blinked, her lips pouted, saying words that were quite nauseating. "So you're not letting me eat hot pot tonight?" Bao Cam's expression showed she was completely at a loss for words with her mistress. Seeing Bao Cam slightly wavering, Tu He continued her act of a weak little rabbit and continued to exclaim, "Really, I can't eat." Poor Bao Cam had to give in. Her emotions at this moment were like having to carefully hold a salted fish that only knew how to eat and wait to be chopped. She thought to herself, "How am I supposed to live now? My mistress is truly a salted fish." Then she dejectedly said, "All right, I'll go find some for you, mistress." Even if Bao Cam's mistress was a salted fish, she still had the responsibility to cherish and care for that salted fish. She walked out of the room. Only Tu He was left. She immediately threw herself onto the bed covers, her face full of worry. She thought to herself, "It seems the crown prince is about to face misfortune." She closed her eyes and thought, "I hope that crown prince will escape danger. Otherwise, my safety talisman will have been wasted." At this moment, at the hunting grounds, an animal was hurriedly running from its hiding place. Behind it, Crown Prince Luo Qinghan was riding a horse in close pursuit. His eyes at this moment were focused only on his prey. Suddenly, his horse reared up. Its whole body trembled, its mouth foaming. Its eyes became wild. Luo Qinghan panicked and thought, "This is bad. The horse is panicking." He frantically tried to control the reins. In his mind, he cursed, "Damn it." The horse continued to neigh loudly and rear up uncontrollably. Then it galloped forward out of control. Luo Qinghan was still struggling, spurring the horse's body, trying to control it. But the more he tried, the more hopeless it became. The horse continued to rush madly forward, and in no time it reached the cliff edge. Luo Qinghan thought in panic, "There's a precipice ahead." Without a moment's delay, he jumped and quickly leaped off the horse's back. But before he could catch his breath, an arrow from somewhere flew straight towards him. Qinghan only had time to shout, "There's an assassin." Then he continued to twist his body to dodge the arrow. He instinctively stepped backward. However, at this moment, it felt like a fire was burning in his chest. Luo Qinghan's face showed clear panic. He worriedly thought to himself, Why is my chest so hot?" At this moment, the arrow had already flown towards him, but it seemed to hit an invisible shield, causing it to bounce back and spin in the air. At this time, the guards had rushed over. The whole group shouted loudly, "Your Highness, quickly protect His Highness." Qinghan had managed to land safely. He looked at the arrow lying on the ground, his heart full of doubts. Why did this arrow shoot at just the right moment? It seemed like something had just deflected the arrow for him. If not, he unconsciously raised his hand to his chest, the place where just minutes ago he had felt burning hot like red-hot coals. His hand touched the talisman that Tu He had given him. Luo Qinghan thought to himself, "This is the safety talisman Tu Luong gave me." The talisman in his palm still seemed warm. He continued to think, "It must be her." But how did she know I would face danger? Remembering Chu He's carefree demeanor and shameless behavior when she clung to the crown prince's robe in the imperial garden, Luo Qinghan felt his blood boil again. He thought to himself, that perverted face is just unbearable. Luo Qinghan gripped the talisman tightly in his hand. His mind was in turmoil. But how did she know I would face danger? Could she be the mastermind? But if she were the mastermind, why would she take the initiative to warn me that I was about to face danger? Suddenly, a voice interrupted his train of thought. Third brother, we heard you encountered an assassin. Are you all right? It was the crown prince and the second prince, running over in panic from afar. Luo Qinghan quickly tucked the talisman back into his robe. Just as the second prince arrived, he regained his usual dignified demeanor and calmness. Turning to answer his two elder brothers, I'm fine, brothers. There's no need to worry. The crown prince said, that's good that you're all right. Father is very worried about you. The second prince also replied, all right then, if you're fine, hurry back to report your safety to father. Leave this place to second brother and big brother to handle. Luo Qinghan coldly replied, thank you for your concern, brothers. But being a cautious and capable person, he immediately called the head of the guards and assigned the investigation. He ordered, quickly divide the troops in two directions. One direction to investigate the cause of why the horse went mad. The other direction to investigate the assassin's whereabouts. The two guard captains bowed and obeyed the order. Only Chang Gong Gong remained by his side. The crown prince fingered the assassin's arrow in his hand and asked, where is Chu Luongda? Changshi bowed his head and reported, Your Highness, Tu Longda is currently locked up in the Cold Fragrance Pavilion. The scene changes to the Cold Fragrance Pavilion. The Crown Prince was preparing to enter. If it weren't to investigate the assassin, he would never set foot in this dilapidated place. At the main hall entrance, a eunuch announced loudly, the Crown Prince arrives. One would expect a beautiful lady to come out and greet him. But instead, what greeted the Crown Prince was a cacophony of clanging and banging. Along with Chu He's loud voice, quickly, put it away. The clanging noise continued to ring out noisily for a while longer, but the room door still hadn't opened. The Crown Prince darkened, thinking, what on earth is she doing? Losing patience, the Crown Prince didn't wait for a greeting anymore, but reached out to push open the room door. With a bang, what appeared before the Crown Prince's eyes was a chaotic scene. It was unclear whether to call it a comedy or a tragedy. On the table was a hot pot bubbling furiously. He was in a panic, hugging a plate of chicken meat, trying to hide it. The maid Bao Cam was also trembling, holding a bowl of fish soup, crying out tearfully, this time we're done for. Shocked by this scene, the Crown Prince shouted angrily, what are you all doing? The Crown Prince's face darkened with anger. Living all these years in the imperial palace, a person accustomed to calmness and etiquette, how could he tolerate such a chaotic scene? Seeing they couldn't hide the food on the table in time, Tu Luongda leaped out to stand in front of the table, shielding it. Startled, she knelt down and shouted, Your Highness. As for Bao Cam, being more timid, she could only tremble and kneel down, unable to utter a word. At this moment, Tu Luongda dared to look up and stammer, Greetings, Your Highness the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince stared at his confined Luongda, who was under house arrest. Her face was as innocent as a white rabbit's, along with her lips still glistening from food. This scene and the chaotic appearance, in all his years of life, he had truly never experienced before. Luo Qinghan asked, What are you doing? Tu He innocently replied, We're having dinner, Your Highness. He stepped forward, lifted her chin, and asked further, Why do you look so unafraid? She looked at him in surprise and asked back, Afraid of what? Her clueless expression now was truly inviting punishment. He pinched her cheeks, making her lips pucker, and continued, Tell me. 100 questions flashed through Chu He's mind at that moment, but they all boiled down to an attitude of, what the hell is this? He continued to stare at her. She also continued to look straight at him. Neither said another word, as if in a battle of wills. The Crown Prince saw that her slowness to understand was at a level so high it was dizzying. He had to point at himself and say, So you're just going to let me stand here? Only then did she hurriedly run to get a chair and bring it to the Crown Prince. Her mouth babbled, Oh my, I forgot the Crown Prince had arrived. How disrespectful of me. Please, Your Highness, have a seat. Just then, the Crown Prince's attention suddenly shifted from Tu He to another object. It was the fish hot pot bubbling on the table. She saw that she had been discovered, but her face showed no worry at being caught red-handed like this. Not only that, she thought it's exposed now. If it's exposed, might as well go all in. She pulled the chair close to the dining table and with a face beaming like a blooming flower, said to the Crown Prince, "Your Highness, if you're in the mood, why not sit and have a bowl for fun?" But his attitude didn't seem to find any fun in this. Luo Qinghan coldly asked, "Where did you get this pot?" He continued to grin as if proudly showing off an achievement. "From the wash basin. Where else?" "Why ask such a silly question?" Chang Shi Gong's expression now turned from surprise to, horror. As for the Crown Prince, his face was exactly like, "Who selected this bizarre creature for my harem?" No longer able to be angry, the Crown Prince said wearily, "You call me stupid, and yet you use a wash basin as a pot and dare to invite me to eat." But it seemed she didn't see this as a problem. She continued to promote her hot pot's quality. "What's wrong with that? My basin is very clean. I guarantee it's delicious. No complaints." Despite such a review, the Crown Prince still wisely and coldly refused. "It looks nauseating. I won't eat it." Putting aside the issue of food hygiene and safety, the Crown Prince moved on to investigate the origin of the food. He coldly interrogated, "Where did you get all these things?" At this moment, everyone noticed there were many ingredients for the hot pot on the table. Vegetables, meat, mushrooms. In short, it was very abundant. Hee's expression now seemed troubled. She awkwardly glanced away and said, "Can I keep this a secret?" The Crown Prince's expression showed that this was no time for jokes. He continued to display a face as if he had just been dunked in a bucket of ice water and asked curtly, "Think about it." Never mind, don't think." So Hee blurted out a stream of words. "Well, I went back to my hometown to grow vegetables, raise fish. You have to work to eat. So I grow my own food, of course." She continued to ramble on. "I raise chickens and ducks, and I even grow my own vegetables too." Surprisingly, is this Tu Luongde a fan of Denvav? To have the full combo of raising fish and growing vegetables like that. Looking at the Crown Prince's face now, it was as if he was experiencing psychological trauma, about to have a seizure. The Crown Prince shouted in horror, "You dare to raise chickens and fish in the Imperial Palace? This is absolutely unprecedented. No one has ever dared to do such things as Tu Luongde." It seemed she wasn't paying attention to the Crown Prince's expression. She still innocently smiled and continued to boast about her achievements. "What's there to be afraid of? The land is vast. Why leave it empty? With free time every day, why not plant something?" She laughed heartily for a while, rambled on for a bit, but when she didn't hear the Crown Prince respond, all that replied was a silent space. Only the hot pot on the table was making bubbling sounds. If this were following a typical anime script, then in this situation, a blackbird would fly across their heads cawing caw caw caw. But it seemed the next scene wasn't going to be comedic. Therefore, the Crown Prince erupted in anger, turning his face and shouting loudly, "Guards, go to Qing, go palace immediately. Uproot all the vegetables and kill all the chickens for me." The rage of the Crown Prince had perhaps reached its peak. The guards bowed their heads and obeyed. Tulungda's face filled with panic as she cried out, "No, it's over now." Immediately, Hee switched to a tragic script. She crawled over to kneel and hugged the Crown Prince's legs, begging and pleading. Tears and snot streaming down her face as she cried miserably. Your Highness, please have mercy. The baby chickens, our baby ducks, are still so small. They've just grown a bit. They don't even know what hot pot is. Please spare them. They're still so innocent and pure." The Crown Prince's face showed a look of utter confusion. What the phosphate? Have I had a bunch of adopted children with 2 legs and 2 wings? Always living in this imperial palace. Truly, anything can happen here. Maintaining the Crown Prince's coldness was an unchanging constant. He glanced at the messy heap of he crying miserably at his feet with indifference, and said, "Innocent and pure children. I have no such children. Let go." But that shout didn't discourage her. Hee continued to prove herself. If she's stubborn, no one can beat her. She continued to cling to the Crown Prince's clothes and legs, crying like she was rapping. "The chicken and duck fields, the vegetables, I've nurtured them bit by bit. They're the result of my countless efforts. They've only just grown to this stage. If they're gone, how will I live from now on? Your Highness, please consider my face. I predicted you wouldn't have good fortune today, so spare the chickens, ducks, and vegetables, fish, salt, pickles, and eggplants of mine." It was truly a touching song. If someone didn't understand, they might think the Crown Prince was about to execute 3 generations of Tu Luongde's family. This change of direction from he had an effect. The crown prince seemed to forget his main objective and turned to follow her lead. He changed his expression and curiously asked her, "How did you know I would encounter misfortune today?" She still clung tightly to the crown prince's robe. Looking up, she answered honestly, "I told you, today your brow was dark. Certainly you'd face misfortune. And it would be a bloody misfortune at that." Question still seemed to be clearly visible on his face. Luo Qinghan continued to ask, "How could you divine such things? Clearly, we've never met before except at the general's mansion half a year ago." At this moment, Tu He switched to fiddling with the hem of his robe, smiling ingratiatingly, and answered the crown prince this, "Your servant doesn't wish to hide from you. Actually, since childhood I've studied at Xianmen." She looked up, gazing at the crown prince happily, and continued, "I grew up in Xianmen. Xianmen is my ancestral home, and the master of Xianmen is my teacher." In the crown prince's mind, he vaguely imagined a mysterious place located among layers of mountains. He thought to himself, "I've heard rumors that Xianmen is a very mysterious school. Although the number of students is very small, each one is extremely talented." In Luo Qinghan's thoughts, the students of Xianmen were all people with extraordinary skills, unparalleled techniques. He recalled the stories he had heard and read. The first emperor in history had wanted to find the elixir of immortality and sent people to Xianmen to search, but they could never find it. He died in vain, still searching. He looked at Tu He intently and thought to himself, "I thought Xianmen was just a sect and legends. I didn't expect it to be real. And a person from Xianmen is actually a woman by my side." Noticing the crown prince's gaze looking at her strangely, she thought to herself, "Today, I must eliminate this crown prince's suspicions. Otherwise, with his suspicious nature, I'll surely face great misfortune." Thinking this, she once again put on a pitiful face. Then she spoke to the crown prince in the most sincere manner. "Crown Prince, you and I are truly on the same side." His eyes suddenly changed for a moment, but quickly they returned to their initial coldness as the crown prince asked her, "Why should this crown prince believe you?" Tu He took something from her waistband. She softly said, "Crown Prince." Then she took out a jade pendant. It was carved like an official token. She respectfully offered it with both hands and said, "This is the token that proves my identity." Luo Qinghan's eyes became surprised to the point of being stunned. He hurriedly reached out to take the token. He held the token up to eye level. From the light of the jade to the carvings on the jade, everything was perfect. He thought to himself, "This token can't possibly be fake. This woman is actually a disciple of Xianmen. Is it true? The token is clearly authentic, but her current appearance is very fake." In reality, Tu He's appearance had shattered all images of a Xianmen disciple in the crown prince's imagination. He looked at her doubtfully, but is she trustworthy? As if reading his thoughts, Tu He turned into a little kitten and pleaded, "Please believe me." Just when the crown prince was most uncertain, she again grabbed his clothes and legs, continuing to beg pitifully, "Spare my children. My chicken, duck, and vegetable babies are still so small. They're innocent." At this point, the crown prince seemed exasperated to the point of speechlessness. He reluctantly said, "I'll spare you for now." Hearing this, Tu He was as happy as if her house had been given a land title. She hugged the crown prince's legs tightly and shouted, "Crown Prince, you're so good." As if shouting wasn't enough, she puckered her lips, shot hearts wildly, and said loudly, "Your servant loves you. Heart, heart." Her face showed the exact infatuated, crazed expression of a fan towards their idol. Tu He's actions made the crown prince jump. He didn't understand where she learned these strange behaviors. The crown prince said sternly, "As a woman, how can you speak of love or not love? If others hear, they'll say you have no sense of shame." Corrected by the crown prince, she looked deflated and said, "I'll take it back and become a proper woman." She murmured, "Your servant was wrong. Your servant won't say it again in the future. Indeed, if you don't like it, then forget it. Don't speak bitter words." But it seemed the crown prince was determined to maintain his cold boy title. He ignored Tu He's expression and continued with the main topic. "Why have I never heard you mention Xianmen before?" Tu He reached out to take back the token and smiled as she explained, "Because your highness had never summoned your servant before. Your servant couldn't meet you. "So how could I tell you about these matters?" He still looked at her suspiciously and continued to ask, "If you are indeed from Xianmen, why do you need to rely on me? Don't you find it inappropriate?" But she didn't seem bothered by his suspicious gaze. She still smiled innocently as she spoke. "Not at all. Becoming a person of the crown prince is an honor for your servant." Seeing that smile, unconsciously, a subtle, indescribable emotion stirred in his heart. Trusting someone is indeed very difficult. For a crown prince, it's even more challenging. Finally, the crown prince decided to leave. Perhaps the doubts in his heart were temporarily resolved. Before turning to leave, he said, "Today I misunderstood you. You can move back to Qingge Palace anytime." Tu He knelt down, bowed her head, and said, "Your servant bids farewell to your highness." She bowed her head solemnly, performing the ritual like the most dignified and well-mannered consort. However, as soon as the crown prince's figure disappeared from sight, the salted fish Tu He revealed her true form. She immediately rushed to the dining table that was still unfinished and let loose. She picked up a piece of hot, delicious meat and put it in her bowl. She laughed with delight. "Finally, he's gone. Let's eat." Putting a piece in her mouth and chewing, perhaps at this moment, even if the sky were to fall, it couldn't stop her from enjoying the feeling of savoring this earthly delicacy. Her face radiated satisfaction and contentment. Taking another piece of spicy fish, her taste buds seemed to awaken. Tu He exclaimed excitedly while savoring the taste, so spicy, so fragrant, so delicious. She was overjoyed to still be alive to enjoy such good food. After a while of enthusiastic eating, Bao Cam softly said to her young mistress, "So you are actually from Xianmen. Why didn't you mention this before?" Still chewing and holding out her bowl for more meat that Bao Cam was picking for her, Tu He replied calmly, "It's just a small matter. Not worth mentioning." Glancing at her mistress, Bao Cam continued to ask, "Do the madam and general know about this?" Still immersed in the sweet, fragrant, and spicy flavors of the meat, Tu He continued to answer nonchalantly, as if her being from Xianmen was just a small matter, like a rabbit sitting on the grass weaving a basket. She replied, "They don't know. Only my grandfather knew about this in the family, but he passed away 3 years ago." Picking up a large piece of meat and putting it in her mouth, Tu He mumbled as she continued, "Everyone in the family thinks I grew up in a normal nunnery." She continued to suck her chopsticks and savor the delicious meal. If it weren't for Bao Cam's pointless questions, this would have been the earliest mukbang in history. Swallowing the piece of meat, her face lit up as if life was blooming. Ignoring Tu He's 7,749 expressions while enjoying her meal, Bao Cam pondered, resting her chopsticks. "So that's how it is. If the general and madam knew the young mistress was from Xianmen, they certainly wouldn't have let her enter the palace." She dipped meat in the hot pot to serve her mistress while sighing exasperatedly. Bao Cam continued to think. The crown princess Luongda is beautiful, has good manners, but compared to being from Xianmen, it's not worth mentioning. The night grew late. Everywhere was covered by the darkness of night. All places seemed to be asleep except the crown prince's private chambers, where the lights were still on. Holding a pile of memorials, the crown prince was still working. Who says being a crown prince is easy? He stays up late, wakes up early, and works as hard as an ox. Suddenly thinking of his conversation with Tu He, Luo Qinghan said to Chang Gong Gong, "Tonight, not a word of Chu Luongda's speech is to leave this room, not even a single character." Chang Shi, as always, respectfully bowed his head and obeyed. Then he lifted his eyes from the memorial. Looking at the space in front of him, as if recalling this evening, he unconsciously said, "Also, tomorrow, take some items over there. Consider it compensation for her." Another dawn arrived, light dispelling the darkness. Birds awoke, chirping on the branches, as if welcoming the new day. At this moment, at Qingge Palace, Chang Shigong Gong brought large and small baskets, filling the main hall of Qingge Palace. Chang Shi bowed and said to Luongda, "These items are bestowed upon you by His Highness the Crown Prince. Quickly thank him for his grace." He was extremely surprised by this. However, she immediately hurried to bow and said, "Thank you, Your Highness, for your great kindness." Excited, she rushed over and quickly began opening each package. The first package was full of high-quality silk from various tribute areas, with extremely eye-catching colors. The next package contained precious jewelry of exquisite craftsmanship. This was a special favor that until now, no woman of the Crown Prince had ever received. These were truly items that captivated the heart. Admiring each item, Tu He exclaimed in surprise and delight. She cried out joyfully, "Bao Cam, quickly put these away. The crown prince is so good to me. As for Bao Cam, her face showed immense pride and satisfaction as she bowed to obey. And of course, receiving such favor meant a gift should be given in return. She also took out from her sleeve a return gift to send back to the crown prince. She thought to herself, now I'm in the same boat as Luo Qinghan. I must protect his safety well. She told herself, as long as he lives well, I can continue being a salted fish with peace of mind. Thinking this, she happily gave a new safety talisman to Chang Shi and said, Chang Gong Gong, the protective talisman from yesterday has been damaged. This is a new protective talisman I've made. Please trouble you to give it to His Highness the Crown Prince for me. Chang Gong Gong beamed as he accepted it and said, Tu Luongda, rest assured. This old servant will certainly give it to His Highness the Crown Prince. Another peaceful afternoon passed by. At this moment, in the dining room of Qinggu Palace, looking at the spotless dishes and bowls, it was clear who had just cleaned out this meal. Tu He's voice rang out with satisfaction, I'm full. That was delicious. She leaned back slightly, enjoying the feeling of fullness with contentment. She said happily, these days of eating mixed foods while waiting to die are really quite good. While clearing away the dirty dishes, Bao Cam reminded her, His Highness the Crown Prince sent people to bestow gifts. Aren't you going to thank him for his grace? Tu He heard this but replied lazily, haven't I already thanked him? Bao Cam seemed unsurprised by this response from Tu He, so she patiently explained and reminded her, what I mean is, if you want to thank him for his grace, you should go to His Highness the Crown Prince. Although your identity is special, being from Xianmen, His Highness won't be indifferent to you. But if you could gain some favor from His Highness the Crown Prince, wouldn't that be better? But it seemed these words didn't reach Tu He's ears. She still floated about like a koi fish, ignoring Bao Cam's continued lecture. Currently, the Eastern Palace has no crown princess. There are only 2 side consorts. Besides that, there are more than 10 Luongda and Luong Yuan. You, a beauty with the status of Xianmen, you also have the qualifications to compete for the position of crown princess. But saying these words to Chu, he was like playing a zither to a cow. She didn't let a single word enter her mind. She went to the bed. With a kick of her foot, her shoes flew off and she flopped onto the soft bed, saying, competing for favor is very tiring. I don't want to. In less than 3 seconds, her eyes began to close. She said to Bao Cam, I want to sleep a bit. The ancients had a saying, when the belly is full, the eyes droop. And when sleepiness hits, even Mencius's words become a buzzing sound. 3 seconds later, she was snoring loudly, leaving Bao Cam standing there with a gloomy face. All the words she had said to Chu He up until now had become a passing breeze, drifting clouds, not leaving even a trace in her mind. She truly was an easy-to-keep salted fish, and yet, an afternoon passed by. 3 hours later, still at Qinggu Palace, Tu He had woken up from her afternoon nap. She was still yawning, indifferently stretching out her arms to let Bao Cam change her clothes. Meanwhile, the maid Bao Cam continued to play the role of a dedicated housekeeper, reminding her, just now, Bai Sufei sent someone with an invitation. She said there's a tea party at Shui Ming Pavilion tomorrow afternoon. She wants to invite you over for tea and flower viewing. Clearly, things like tea appreciation, flower viewing, poetry, and elegant music weren't her style. But she suddenly remembered and said a tea party. Doesn't that mean there will be lots of delicious food? Just thinking of the words delicious food made her mouth water. Bao Cam, behind her, couldn't see her greedy expression. She answered reflexively, perhaps so. Those few words from Bao Cam were enough to make Tu He's enthusiasm surge. Her eyes sparkled. She said excitedly, then I must go. Night had already enveloped the Eastern Palace. At this moment, in the Crown Prince's private chambers, the lights were bright. Luo Qinghan was sitting alone, having dinner. The table was filled with dishes, but they didn't seem to attract him. Chang Shi, beside him, bowed and handed him the new talisman Tu he had made for him. He said, Your Highness, this is the protective talisman Tu Luongda asked this servant to give you. He reached out to take the talisman from Chang Gong Gong. Then he held the talisman up to eye level and looked at it indifferently. Unconsciously, the innocent smile, carefree demeanor, and lovely face of Tu he appeared in his mind. Thinking of her, his eyes lost their cold look and suddenly became dreamy. Luo Qinghan unconsciously fingered the talisman in his hand. In his heart, he couldn't help but think of her. He He tucked the talisman into the fragrant pouch he wore and asked absently, "What has Tu Luongda been doing all day?" "Chong." She briefly reported her schedule. In the morning, Tu Luongda moved back to Qingge Palace. After that, she stayed in Qingge Palace without going out. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, Chong, she exclaimed, "Oh, that's right." During the day, Bai Sufei sent an invitation to Tu Luongda, inviting her to attend a tea party tomorrow afternoon. Hearing about the gathering and entertainment of the women in his harem, the crown prince showed indifference, not a bit of interest. He absently looked out the door. Chong, she beside him, continued to remind him, "Your Highness, will you be resting at Qingge Palace tonight?" But without any hesitation, Luo Qinghan stood up and said, "No, go to the study." Then he quickly left. The scene changes to the next day. It was a beautiful day, with blue skies and golden sunshine. Flocks of birds soared in the sky. Beautiful scenery can make people's hearts more excited. Bao Cam reminded Tu He, "Later when you meet Bai Sufei, your attitude must be cheerful." The yellow and blue robes of Tu He and Bao Cam glided hurriedly through the flower garden. Even so, Bao Cam kept reminding her, "If the other party says anything that displeases you, just smile and pretend to be naive. To make everything go smoothly, okay?" Aunt Bao Cam continued to nag and remind, her face extremely serious. Dedication was clear in every word she spoke. Bai Sufei, after all, is a Sufei of higher rank than you. Moreover, her father is the crown prince's uncle, so you must show her respect. Even if you don't try to please her, you must definitely not offend her. But in return was only Tu He's sleepy face. She replied perfunctorily, I know. Bao Cam's face darkened when she realized her reminders hadn't left a single word in her young mistress's salted fish mind. In no time, they arrived at Shui Ming Pavilion. Present at the tea party were Bai Sufei, Li Sufei, and other beauties and Luong Yuan. Everyone was gathered around the tea table, laughing and talking happily. Tu He and Bao Cam approached and bowed. She respectfully bowed and said, Tu He greets Bai Sufei and Li Sufei. Seeing this, Bai Sufei gently raised her hand to signal them to rise and said, Little sister, please sit. Before she could sit down, Tu He's eyes lit up like stars when she saw the food on the table. Not bothering to maintain her image, she said eagerly, These foods look very delicious. Seeing this, Bai Sufei couldn't help but laugh happily and said, These are some pastries I prepared for all the sisters. Everyone please try some. Before everyone's eyes was a tea table with various exotic and appealing pastries. Indeed, the arrangements in Sufei's palace were quite different from those of Luong Yuan and Luongda. Faced with such an attractive tea party, Tu He couldn't contain herself. She picked up a pastry and said joyfully, Wow, these look both beautiful and delicious. I won't be polite then. And as she took her first bite, the delicious taste of the pastry made her fragile soul tremble with delight. She said with relish, It melts in the mouth. It's truly delicious. The ancients had a saying, if you don't feel embarrassed, then others will be embarrassed for you. And that was exactly the case. The others here was Bao Cam. The young girl Bao Cam, seeing her mistress's behavior, couldn't help but sigh. Is there anything you don't find delicious? Setting aside the matter of food, the next item on these women's tea table agenda was sarcasm and begging. Li Sufei made the first move. She covered her mouth with a fan and said softly, I heard that Sister Bai was ill. Didn't His Highness the Crown Prince visit you? Bai Sufei could easily detect the malice in every word and gesture of Li's. But these sarcastic remarks were basically something she could handle. Taking a small sip of tea, Bai Sufei replied gently, I was just feeling a bit unwell. A good sleep cured it. How could I trouble His Highness to visit personally? Chun Luong Yuan, seeing this, also spoke up for Bai Sufei. That's right, His Highness is very busy. How could he come to the back palace every day? Bai and Chun looked at each other, one throwing, the other catching. Chun continued, But Sister Bai, we sisters haven't seen His Highness for a long time. Tu He was chewing while paying attention to their behavior, but she seemed more concerned with finishing all the pastries. Li Sufei wasn't about to let up. She decided to take on both Bai and Chun. At the same time, she also intended to draw Tu Luongda to her side. She continued sarcastically, If His Highness is busy, why did he have time to visit the cold fragrance pavilion the other night? Her eyes darted towards Tu He as if signaling. but it seemed her move had been ineffective, because the ally she intended to recruit was busy chewing diligently, completely oblivious to her words. Nevertheless, she didn't intend to give up on the good card that was Qiu Luongde. She cursed these two fools in her mind, but outwardly, her words remained gentle, though heavy as stones. Little sister Tu, are you listening to our conversation? Hearing her name mentioned, Tu Luongde looked up, gazing at everyone in bewilderment, her mouth still chewing incessantly like a hamster. Seeing her like this, Bai Su Fei couldn't help but chuckle and say, "It seems little sister Tu wasn't listening." This smile was meant for her, but it was tenfold for Li Su Fei. But despite eating continuously like a hamster, our Qiu, he was also a hamster with a sense of loyalty. Seeing the situation, she pondered and weighed her options. If she had eaten Bai Su Fei's pastries and fruits, she should help out a bit. So she put away her usual greedy expression and tried to display the dignity of a well-bred young lady. She seriously joined the conversation. She said, "Who is Li Wanqi? Why should His Highness go?" Tu Hi's words were like throwing a stone into the gathering. As soon as she spoke, the entire table fell silent. It wasn't clear if they were shocked by her words or if they were speechless and couldn't say anything else. Noticing the sudden silence, she decided not to bother pretending anymore. She returned to being an obedient hamster, fulfilling her function of chewing and chewing. The most pitiful person at this moment was still Bao Cam. Although daily she understood her mistress's ignorance well, at this moment she had to pale and sigh inwardly. "Oh, my young mistress, look at what nonsense you're spouting." Seeing the atmosphere become somewhat awkward, Bai Su Fei regained her hostess' composure, cleared her throat to break the silence. Then she smiled insincerely and changed the subject. "The wind is quite strong today." Seeing her ally speak thus, Chen Luong Yuan also chimed in. "That's right, the wind is strong. I couldn't hear anything just now either." She graciously tried to smooth things over for Tu Hi. However, it was perhaps unnecessary because our salted fish Tu didn't feel embarrassed at all and was now calmly enjoying her tea. After the round of sarcasm and jabs, the next topic at the tea party was none other than the Crown Prince, the man they all shared. Li Sufei said, "I heard that His Highness the Crown Prince, while hunting, was almost injured." Then she continued, "Do you sisters know what exactly happened?" At this topic, perhaps the ladies began to show interest. Someone spoke up, "I heard the horse was frightened, causing His Highness to fall off." Bai Sufei nodded in agreement. That His Highness could come out unscathed this time is truly fortunate. "Speak of the devil, and he shall appear." Outside, Chong Gong Gong's voice announced, "His Highness the Crown Prince arrives." And then Luo Qing Han entered majestically. Immediately, the women of the back palace knelt down to pay respects and said in unison, "Your servants greet your highness." After signaling everyone to rise, Luo Qing Han asked them, "What were you all talking about just now?" Bai Su Fei quickly replied, "We were just discussing how when your highness went hunting, you were almost injured, whether intentionally or not." Bai Su Fei covered her mouth and coughed a few times. Immediately, she attracted the Crown Prince's attention. He gently inquired, "Are you ill again?" However, in this back palace, scripts were always readily available. So Bai Su Fei immediately said, "Knowing your highness was almost injured, I felt uneasy. With the cold wind at night, my illness relapsed. Cough, cough, blame my uselessness. A script as smooth as velvet." The Crown Prince continued to show concern. "Have you called for the imperial physician?" Bai Su Fei continued softly, "It's just a minor ailment. No need to trouble the imperial physician. Some rest will make me feel better. Thank you for your concern, your highness." It wasn't hard to see that towards this Su Fei surnamed Bai, the Crown Prince showed some care. He continued to instruct, "If you're ill, you should seek treatment promptly. Later, send someone to get my token and go see the imperial physician." Chun Luong Yuan, seeing this, couldn't help but admire how well His Highness treated Sister Bai. Though she felt a bit happy inside, outwardly, Bai remained calm and said, "Your Highness treats everyone well." Li Su Fei, standing nearby, couldn't help but feel irritated and twisted with jealousy. She glared at Bai and thought to herself, "This white lotus knows that by appearing weak, she can attract His Highness's attention. Shameless." Glancing over at Chun, she frowned and cursed inwardly. This Chunlong Yuan is truly brainless. Still flattering that white lotus, thinking this will give her a place in the Eastern Palace. "Keep dreaming, you'll never be on top." Li Sufei then rushed to the Crown Prince's side, hoping to gain some status in the back palace. She said eagerly, "Your Highness, your servant has recently learned a Western dance. I've become quite proficient. Then she tried to use her charm to attract the crown prince. She softly continued, I wonder if your highness tonight could come to your servants' quarters to appreciate it. The group of women in the harem, hearing her intentions like this, all became panicked and worried. It seemed they all had the same thought. This is dangerous. Bai Sufei just wanted to attract the crown prince's attention. Li Sufei dared to try to lure the crown prince to spend the night at her place. To this group of people in the harem, everyone was a potential threat. But in response to Li Sufei's enthusiasm, the crown prince only coldly replied, we'll discuss it later. It's no wonder Luo Qinghan was so indifferent to her, because my attention had collided with her gaze. And the crown prince's attention at this moment was colliding with a hamster paying respects, but whose mouth hidden behind her sleeve was still secretly chewing nonstop. Beside her was still the image of Bao Cam with her helpless expression, still trying to signal to Chu He that, wait a bit longer before eating. Seeing this, the crown prince called out to Chu Luongda. As if caught cheating by a proctor during an exam, Bao Cam's face showed clear panic. But Chu He had already managed to stuff all the food into her mouth and looked up at the crown prince with an innocent deer-in-headlights expression. The crown prince looked at her then. Unconsciously, in his mind, a familiar image appeared. He thought, very much like the little squirrel I raised before. A squirrel with puffed cheeks, stuffing all the food into its mouth to hide it. At this moment, all the people in the harem turned to look at her with envious eyes. But she seemed not to notice this at all. Nonchalantly looking back at the crown prince, she said, Does your highness have any instructions? Luo Qinghan cleared his throat a few times to regain his usual dignity. And quickly, he resumed his cold demeanor and said, Tomorrow is Mother Empress's birthday. In the evening, there will be a banquet at Fengqi Yuan. At that time, you will accompany me there. Hearing this, Tu He put her hand on her chin and thought quickly. She mused to herself, the Empress's birthday. As if by instinct, she quickly calculated when thinking about food. Tu He thought further. A birthday celebration must certainly have lots of delicious food. Thinking of this, she imagined the scene of palace maids in abundance bringing up plates of food. Following that was the image of long tables filled with delicious dishes, delicacies that she had never eaten in her entire life. Just thinking about it, her mind urged her on. Go, go, go. Not going means you're not human. Thinking this, she unconsciously raised her hands and clapped joyfully. She grinned and said excitedly, certainly. Tu He's joy was displayed so openly that she didn't sense the cold atmosphere enveloping the room, making others shiver. For pairs of eyes, like those of beasts, were staring at her, as if wanting to slaughter her immediately. Still with a face as cold as a gecko, Luo Qinghan asked her, Are you full? She gently rubbed her flat stomach, thinking to herself, It seems I'm not quite full yet. How terrifying. Her stomach was like a bottomless pit. Luo Qinghan shot an icy glare at her. She intended to speak her mind, but the little intelligence she had left managed to surface above the food in her mind and take effect. It made her startle and think, wait, the crown prince suddenly asking like this must have some other intention, right? Her small brain continued to ponder. If the mistress has to act, then, as a responsible employee, I naturally have to cooperate. So she conjugated the verb into continuous tense, meaning she was acting. Tu He put on an extremely delighted face and said, I'm full. Receiving this answer, Luo Qinghan's expression remained unchanged. He coldly said, Then let's go. So she had to scurry after Luo Qinghan to leave. Behind them, the remaining women all bowed their heads. We bid farewell to your highness. After they had gone, Bai Sufei kept looking until she could no longer see their shadows. Seeing Bai Sufei's gloomy expression, Chen Luong Yuan used a flattering tone to speak for Bai. His highness is going to the Empress's banquet. Even if he doesn't take us, he should at least take Sister Bai. Whether it's status, position, or appearance, Sister Bai's character is much better than Chu Luongda's. Bai Sufei didn't want to gossip about this. She just said softly, I'm tired and want to rest for a while. Please, sisters, make yourselves at home. Li Sufei snorted and still gave her rival a malicious look. Watching Bai's back as she went inside, she couldn't help but think to herself, clearly jealous to death inside, yet still pretending to be all calm and graceful. Such a fake. At this moment outside in the garden, the sky was still clear blue. The weather was pleasantly cool. Tu Luongda was still trailing behind the crown prince, like an obedient puppy. Luo Qinghan glanced at his Luongda and couldn't help but ponder. If she was indeed from the mysterious Xianmen, then why exactly did she enter the palace? Was it to get close to me? Catching the crown prince's gaze, Tuohe quickly ran forward and asked him, "Does your highness have something to ask?" The crown prince pretended to look at the clouds and wind, casually asking, "If I ask, will you answer?" Tuohe replied without hesitation, "Of course." Given her word, he immediately asked, "Where exactly is Xianmen?" But she also didn't beat around the bush and answered directly, "Xianmen is in the mountains." That's an answer, right? But it's not much. But it seemed she feared the crown prince wouldn't be satisfied and would want to know more details. So she spoke up to explain about the mysterious snow-covered place in the mountain valley that she called Xianmen. That place is very remote and desolate. Ordinary people can't find it. Even if they try hard to find it, they still can't enter. Luo Qinghan asked why. In her mind, that place was now a land full of traps. She continued, because they'll get lost. The terrain in the mountains is very complex. There are also mechanisms and arrays set up by Xianmen. Then she pointed at herself and continued, those with bad intentions or bad luck won't be able to keep their lives. It turned out she pointed at herself to demonstrate the saying, great fortune, great life. Hearing this, Luo Qinghan still couldn't help but wonder. He asked, then how did you find Xianmen? She also answered honestly, based on intuition. Your servant can sense the direction of Xianmen. Just follow the intuition and you'll get there. Luo Qinghan pulled her close, looked straight into her clear eyes and said, then can you take me to Xianmen? Our crown prince was trying to use his charm, but it might work on others. For our salted fish stew, it was completely useless. She quickly refused right away. Then realizing she was a bit rude, she immediately put on a pitiful act. With eyes brimming with tears, she said, Xianmen has rules. We're not allowed to bring outsiders in. Breaking the rules will result in punishment. Your servant doesn't want to be punished. Before Luo Qinghan could scold her, Tuohe immediately countered with a loyal and brave image. She said, but your highness, if you need any help, you don't need to go to Xianmen. Just find your servant, and that will do. Your servant will do her utmost to help you achieve it. And perhaps her behavior was exactly what he was waiting for. Luo Qinghan looked at her and thought to himself, if she had agreed to take me to Xianmen right away, I would have suspected her of having ulterior motives. Then he changed the subject. He said, do you have any more protective talismans? I want 2 protective talismans. Seeing that the crown prince wasn't mentioning anything about Xianmen's location anymore, Tuohe breathed a sigh of relief and boldly replied to him, no problem. Your servant will make them for you when I return. As for protective talismans, we grow them at home, so to speak. In the evening, at Qinggo Palace, Bao Cam was rummaging through things, searching for something, from wardrobes to chests. She had turned everything upside down, but seemed not to have found what she was looking for. Tuohe was leisurely reclining in an armchair, enjoying some snacks, and casually asked Bao Cam, what are you doing? Bao Cam, still looking tense, picked up and put down each piece of clothing and replied, tomorrow night you have to attend the birthday banquet. Your servant is looking for clothes for you. But it seemed she didn't consider this important at all. While casually snacking, she said, I can just wear the normal clothes I usually wear, can't I? But Bao Cam frowned and objected, no, you can't. You've been in the palace for half a year now. You've never appeared in public anywhere. Tomorrow night will be your first public appearance. Moreover, you'll be appearing with His Highness the Crown Prince. You must dress up beautifully, no matter what. It seemed that not being able to find a satisfactory outfit made Bao Cam more irritable than usual. She continued, your everyday clothes are too ordinary. The goal is to prepare an outfit for you that will astonish everyone. Then Bao Cam helplessly lowered her voice and asked her mistress, young mistress, you're attending the Empress Dowager's birthday celebration. Have you prepared a birthday gift yet? Tuohe reached for a skewer of meat and said nonchalantly, if it's for a birthday celebration, just give peaches. Tomorrow, have someone make a basket of peaches. I'll give that to the Empress Dowager, and it'll be fine. Or make a really big cake. Write 8 big characters on top. Empress Dowager, happy birthday, hooray. The image of either the cake or peach basket seemed terribly tacky. Bao Cam couldn't be patient anymore. She puffed up her cheeks and shouted loudly, absolutely not. Others give rare and precious treasures. You want to give a basket of peaches or a big cake. But perhaps the refinement of a worldly young lady was something he couldn't possess. Seeing Bao Cam suddenly lose her temper, she teared up and said, apart from food, I can't think of anything else. And if it's too difficult, let's just forget it. Tuohe decided to give up and stop thinking altogether. She lay down right there and said, forget it, I'm tired too. I need to go to sleep, ignoring Bao Cam, standing there completely at a loss. This time, Bao Cam wasn't going to give up and ignore her mistress anymore. She ran over and shook Tew, he like a mango with salt and chili. Her mouth kept shouting loudly, "No, young mistress, wake up now." Ignoring her moaning Aya, "I'm sleepy." It seemed she had surrendered to Bao Cam's determination. So even though her face was drowsy from being shaken, she had to say to her maid, all right, get that last chest over there. Take the bag on the left and bring it here." Bao Cam didn't waste a second. She brought the bag from where she pointed and quickly placed it in front of her. Tui slowly opened the bag and Tada, a 1,000-year-old ginseng root that she had hidden like a treasure. She handed it to Bao Cam and said, "Give this." Bao Cam looked at the ginseng root, and her attitude changed 180 degrees. She exclaimed joyfully, excitedly, and happily, "This ginseng root is of excellent quality. It's truly a treasure that out there, even with money, might not be buyable. Young mistress, where did you get such good ginseng?" Tui yawned, pushed the bag away to prepare to lie down. She casually replied to Bao Cam, "My master gave it to me. I don't know where he got it from either." It seemed the sleepiness was creeping up to her eyelids. Tui tried to ask Bao Cam one last question. "Is there any problem using this as a birthday gift?" Needless to say, the little maid Bao Cam was overjoyed beyond measure. Her eyes lit up and she replied, "No problem, absolutely no problem. Just waiting for this." Tui considered her task done. She immediately flopped down, turned her back, as if refusing any further disturbance, and said, "Then I'm going back to sleep." The scene changes to the next afternoon. At this moment in Go Palace, Bao Cam was doing makeup and hair for Tui. A touch of color on the eyelids made her eyes more beautiful than flowers. A bit of lipstick on her full red lips. The freshness was more beautiful than dawn. Sparkling hairpins adorned her hair. Looking at the overall effect, one would realize that if you hadn't seen Tui with her cheeks puffed out chewing food, the impression of 10 out of 10 people would be that Tui was truly a great beauty. Like right now, she was so beautiful and charming that even she couldn't recognize herself in the mirror. As for the little maid Bao Cam, she was squinting with joy at her absolutely wonderful masterpiece. Bao Cam smiled and said, "With the young mistress's current appearance, she will surely captivate His Highness, making him lose his soul completely." But after all, having been a pearl among pebbles for so long, Tui was still not used to her current appearance. She frowned and thought, "It feels so strange. It's like I've changed my entire face." As arranged, the crown prince had arrived and was waiting for Tui. After careful grooming, she also gently walked to the meeting place with the crown prince. Hearing a sound, the crown prince reflexively turned around. First, a faint floral fragrance wafted over. Then, an elegant Tui appeared, graceful in a pink dress that accentuated her fair skin. A Tui he had never imagined before, and so he stood stunned for 5 seconds, for his attention had collided with her gaze. Luo Qinghan was truly astonished by the woman standing before him. Tui seemed not at all awkward in this new dress. It was completely different from the clothes she wore daily. Meanwhile, Bao Cam was holding up the hem of her dress to help her avoid stains on the way. It seemed Luo Qinghan was still mesmerized by her dramatic transformation. Seeing the crown prince's gaze on her like that, she awkwardly pointed at herself and said, "Does your servant's makeup look a bit strange?" He immediately replied, "Not strange at all," but he blushed slightly. Luo Qinghan looked at her and thought to himself, not only not strange, but very beautiful too. Then, unconsciously, he raised his hand to her face, as if wanting to gently touch that face. This made Tui a bit confused and perplexed. His eyes still gazed at her intently. His mind couldn't help but tell itself, in the imperial palace, there shouldn't be such clear, sparkling eyes. He gently brushed her hair aside and lightly touched her eyelid. A pair of large, round eyes, clear as crystal. Now there was no longer a cold gaze, but instead a warm look. He said softly to her, "Don't look at me with those eyes anymore in the future." Among the gently falling peach blossoms, for the first time, he saw a beauty so pure and gentle, like the peach petals floating in the air. It seemed her innocence couldn't be concealed by any layer of makeup. She foolishly asked him, "Is there something wrong with your servant's eyes? Perhaps he was too lazy to explain to her. So he turned around to walk away, not forgetting to remind her, "Let's go. Stay behind me." He was confused, not understanding why the crown prince had suddenly changed like that. She wondered, did he just start disliking me? But why? I didn't do anything. Before her doubts could be resolved, from behind, Bao Cam urged hurriedly, "Young mistress, his highness has already gone far ahead. We should quickly catch up to him." She also hurriedly let out an "oh" and hastily ran after him. She scurried to catch up with the crown prince, causing Bao Cam behind her, holding her dress, to also hurry and run after her. In no time, they arrived at the venue for the Empress Dowager's birthday celebration. It was truly a magnificent and grand place. Long rows of palace maids and eunuchs, seeing Luo Qinghan, immediately knelt down and bowed their heads in greeting. "Greetings to His Highness the Crown Prince." He returned to his usual cold demeanor and replied to the servants, "No need for excessive ceremony." At this moment at the banquet, the space was extremely ornate and grand. Maids respectfully offered tea and pastries to the distinguished guests. At the top, the Emperor, Empress, and Empress Dowager were already seated in the most honored positions. Tu Luongda and the Crown Prince, attending the Empress's birthday celebration, were also in their positions. She sat down, quietly glancing up at the Empress. In her heart, she wondered, is this Empress Qin? Before her eyes was Empress Qin, with a cold expression, but extremely beautiful and dignified. Tu Luongda thought to herself, looking at this face, she must be hard to approach. Looking at the Crown Prince, she mused, now I know why this Luo Qinghan is also hard to approach. This facial expression must have been learned from the Empress. The banquet began. Crown Prince Luo Qinghan stepped up first to present a gift to the Empress. He began with the words, "Your son wishes Mother Empress longevity like the southern mountains and much good fortune." He continued, "Your son knows Mother Empress has always been seeking Master Qin's painting, so your son has specially found it to gift to Mother Empress." Then he ordered someone to unfurl the landscape painting. The picturesque landscape painting was extremely eye-catching. The Empress's eyes also showed a bit of emotion. This painting must be very meaningful to Empress Qin. She took the painting, admiring it, and thought to herself, to find this painting, my son must have spent no small effort. Then she said to the Crown Prince, "You've gone to trouble." The Crown Prince bowed and returned to his original position. On this side, there was a gaze looking towards the Crown Prince with displeasure. It was the first prince, as if afraid of losing the spotlight. He hurriedly stood up and respectfully said, "Your son wishes Mother Empress longevity like the southern mountains." Then he waved his hand for someone to bring in a Buddha statue cast in pure gold, magnificent and glittering, and said, "This is the statue your son specially commissioned to be made for Mother Empress." Tuhihi looked at the glittering golden statue, feeling dazzled as if she could smell money. In her heart, she assessed, wow, a statue made of pure gold. Indeed, the prince is truly wealthy. His face was very self-satisfied. Feeling everyone's eyes on him, he smugly thought, those paintings can't compare to my Buddha statue. However, the Empress not only didn't praise him, but just coldly grunted. Seeing this, he put on a puzzled face, thinking, that's it. Then he darkened with anger. Though displeased, he probably only dared to curse inwardly and didn't dare to say anything out loud. He could only return to his seat, nursing his anger. An hour later, people were still offering birthday wishes to the Empress. Tuhihi was bored, thinking, how much longer until this ends? Royal etiquette is really too complicated. Sitting for so long made her legs go numb. She secretly reached down to massage her legs, thinking, my legs are completely numb. Thinking it was just a small, unconscious action that no one would notice, she didn't expect the Crown Prince to be paying attention to her. He turned and gently asked her, are you tired? Tuhi put on a weak and pitiful expression. Her eyes sparkled as she nodded and made an sound. She thought to herself, the prince will surely comfort me now. Thinking he would comfort her. Instead, he just said coldly, you'll get used to it after sitting for a while. What a stone-cold face indeed. Tuhi pouted and forced a smile. But in her heart, she thought, damn, I shouldn't have said anything. With such a vicious personality, you'll be single forever. After the congratulatory part was over, next came the part 2 he had been looking forward to most, time to eat. There was eye-catching sweet and sour fried fish. Next was a table full of delicacies that looked extremely appetizing. Looking at it through the screen made one's mouth water. Mouth water. Seeing the delicious dishes laid out before her, Hi's eyes lit up. With food, she forgot all her fatigue. In her heart, she was as happy as if she'd won the lottery. Finally, she could eat. She picked up a piece of meat to eat, but the crown prince turned to look at her. Not just a glance, but he kept staring at her. He immediately understood. Oh, I forgot. At the dining table, the person with the highest status should eat first. Royal etiquette. So she picked up a piece of meat and put it in his bowl. Then she gave a flattering smile and said, "Your Highness, please eat first." But Chang Gong Gong, seeing this, became flustered and sweaty, thinking the crown prince has never eaten chicken before. But before he could speak up, the crown prince reached out and picked up that piece of meat from the bowl. Then he gently put it in his mouth to taste, before Chang Gong Gong's terrified and dazed eyes. Chang Gong Gong wiped his sweat. His face was bewildered as he thought to himself, "Let's pretend I didn't say anything just now." He, seeing him eat with relish, happily smiled and asked him, "How is it? Is it delicious?" Then her eyes sparkled again as if blooming with flowers. The crown prince looked at her expectant eyes and said, "It's passable." That was on the surface, but in his heart, he felt the chicken was as bad as he had thought. He looked at him full of expectation and asked again, "Anything else?" He just calmly replied, "No." Far behind, someone was quietly observing. The two of them. It was Bao Cam, Hi's maid. She looked at her mistress's back and rejoiced silently. Her heart moved to tears. "Oh, my little young miss, you've finally grown up a bit more. You finally know how to please His Highness." After a round of birthday congratulations, the emperor had also raised his glass in celebration. He stood up and said to the guests, "Everyone, please enjoy the feast at your leisure." Following that, the emperor, empress, and concubines left the banquet first. They retired to rest. Everyone stood up to pay respects. Finally, he could eat. She ate rapidly, making up for having to sit and wait until her legs went numb earlier. The first prince, holding a wine bottle, came over to her and the crown prince. Then he approached Luo Qing Han as if wanting to cause trouble, saying, "Come, brother, let's have a drink together." Not caring whether the crown prince agreed or not, he had already filled his cup with wine. "Let me pour for you, little brother." The crown prince maintained his coldness. With an expressionless face, he said, "Big brother, you're drunk." The first prince was not a gentle person. With the addition of alcohol, he began to lose patience. "I'm not drunk. Come on, drink up quickly." Seeing the crown prince not reacting, he started to raise his voice in the great hall. "I'm your big brother offering you a drink, and you don't even want to drink it. Or, do you think you're the crown prince now, so you look down on a big brother like me? You don't want to acknowledge me as your big brother, huh?" The second prince quietly observed both of them. The other princes were paying attention, but no one dared to intervene. The first prince thought angrily to himself, "This crown prince position should have been mine. I should have been the one in this position." Then he picked up the wine cup again. His face extremely displeased, he said to Luo Qing Han, "If you're a real man, then hurry up and drink this cup of wine. Third brother, don't make me look down on you." Chang Gong Gong couldn't stand still anymore and put on a fake smile as he spoke up. "First prince, please don't force His Highness anymore. His Highness the Crown Prince doesn't like to drink. If you need someone to drink with you, I can accompany you, can't I?" But the first prince angrily shouted, "What are you doing here? This is none of your business. Get out of my way quickly." Then he raised the wine cup again, continuing to pressure the crown prince. "It's just one cup of wine. Why do you have to be so difficult about it?" The crown prince's eyes suddenly became colder, his face full of displeasure as he thought to himself, "If this wasn't Mother Empress's birthday celebration, I would have left here long ago." As the tension between them continued, suddenly a hand took the wine cup in front of the crown prince. It was He. After taking the cup from the first prince's hand, she raised the wine cup, preparing to drink. After smelling the wine's fragrance, He happily praised, "The wine smells so good." Before anyone could understand what was happening, she had already emptied the cup. The first prince, extremely angry, shouted loudly, "Who are you?" He waved the empty cup, smiling as she answered him, "This humble one is Qiu Luongda." The first prince looked at the crown prince mockingly and said, "The dignified crown prince, yet you let a woman drink on your behalf. Third brother, don't you feel ashamed?" The crown prince paid no attention to his taunts. He looked at He in surprise and asked, "What's wrong with you?" Suddenly, he clutched her stomach, grimacing as she said through gritted teeth, I suddenly have a terrible stomachache. She couldn't bear it and let go, dropping the wine cup. As soon as she finished speaking, she spat out blood, causing Luo Qinghan to worry. The wine cup fell freely. Then her whole body collapsed. The wine cup shattered on the ground. The crown prince worriedly wrapped his arms around her. He called her name with great concern, Tu Luongda. Luo Qinghan turned to look at the first prince with cold eyes. He said in a stern voice, "Big brother, did you put poison in the wine?" The first prince's face was panic-stricken, as if about to fall backwards. He didn't expect this to happen. He fearfully turned pale. "I didn't, it wasn't me." Whispers and discussions arose around them. She drank it and immediately had a stomachache, coughing up blood, and it was black blood. This wine must definitely be poisoned. That poison cup was meant for Luo Qinghan to drink. If he hadn't drunk it for him, I'm afraid the one lying there would be Luo Qinghan. Luo Qinghan's eyes sharpened as he thought to himself, "Last time they couldn't kill me while hunting. This time they've changed to using poison." Tu lay in his arms, her face pale and ashen, as if she could stop breathing at any moment. The imperial physician hurriedly came to check Tu-hee's pulse. Then he examined the remaining drops of wine in the cup. His voice full of gravity, he said, "This is a potent poison. This old one doesn't know exactly what kind of poison it is. First, we must make her vomit all the wine in her stomach before we can treat the poison." In no time, the medicine was brought, a bowl of thick black liquid emitting a bitter smell. Tu turned her head into the crown prince's chest, refusing to drink. "I won't drink it." Luo Qinghan's eyes flashed with worry. Then, ignoring her refusal to drink, he took the medicine bowl from the imperial physician. Then he pinched her mouth open. With his other hand, he put the medicine bowl to her lips and forced her to drink forcefully, showing no gentleness at all. Tu-hee, having the medicine poured into her mouth, felt dizzy from the extreme bitterness. Then she felt something sour rising in her throat and turned her head to vomit everything out. Indeed, falling into this situation was a complete loss of face. But perhaps losing face wasn't important. Losing one's life would be the big issue. After vomiting, she fainted from exhaustion. Early the next morning in Tu-hee's private chambers, she gradually woke up from her coma. Bao Cam, seeing her awake, was overjoyed and cried out, "Young miss, you've finally woken up." Tu-hee saw her little maid's eyes red from crying and spoke up to comfort her. "Don't worry, I'm fine." Bao Cam cried and continued, "Yesterday when I saw you coughing up blood, your servant was almost scared to death." Bao Cam wiped her tears and sobbed. "You must absolutely not eat anything strange in the future. If you want to eat something, tell your servant to make it for you. Please don't eat anything from outside. The outside is too dangerous." Tu-hee, seeing Bao Cam like this, smiled and replied, "What happened yesterday was just an accident. Don't you see I'm fine now? How long was I unconscious?" Bao Cam wiped her tears and answered, "You were unconscious for one night." Tu-hee asked further, "Did anything happen while I was unconscious?" Bao Cam replied, "His Highness the Crown Prince personally carried you back to Qing-Ge Palace. In the evening, the imperial physician and I watched over you until you were completely safe before leaving." Then Bao Cam angrily expressed, "But it's really too much. Yesterday you drank the wine for the Crown Prince and got poisoned. You saved the Crown Prince's life like that, yet he's not grateful. He just left without taking care of you. It's really heartless." Tu-hee smiled gently and said, "We can't blame the Crown Prince. I drank it of my own accord. I knew early on that the wine was poisoned, but still wanted to drink it. So this has nothing to do with the Crown Prince." Bao Cam thought she had misheard and quickly asked again, "What did you say? You knew early on that the wine was poisoned. How is that possible?" Just at this moment, the Crown Prince arrived at her door. He was about to push the door open when he heard her say this and stood stunned for 5 seconds. Chang Gong Gong, who came with him, seeing this, also changed his expression. He signaled for all the palace maids to withdraw. Inside the room, Tu-hee explained to Bao Cam, "Last night, I saw the first prince's brow turn black, dark clouds above his head. This is the most unlucky appearance. When he handed over the wine, I saw the dark clouds above his head were about to pour down water. At that time, I knew that wine must definitely have a problem. Her face turned serious, as if recalling last night's moment. She continued, that's why I took that cup of wine. After smelling it, I knew the wine was poisoned. Baocam still looked confused. Her face still showed extreme bewilderment. Why didn't your servant see any dark clouds above the first prince's head? Chu He, seeing the little maid Baocam still didn't understand, continued, because you weren't born with the celestial eye. As if to explain in more detail, Chu He pointed to her forehead. A third eye appeared. I have a special destiny, so when I was born, my celestial eye opened. I can see through these things with just a glance. She waved her hand and continued, think about it. If the crown prince had drunk that wine, whether he died or not, the crime of poisoning the crown prince would fall on the first prince's head. Wouldn't that be extremely unlucky for him? At this point, Baocam finally understood. Those were the unlucky dark clouds above the crown prince's head. Well, he deserves it. Who told him to try to poison the crown prince? Hearing this, Tui cupped her chin and thought, this matter isn't as simple as you think. No matter how stupid the first prince is, he wouldn't possibly poison the crown prince in front of everyone. If he did that, wouldn't he be seeking his own death? Someone must be trying to frame him in this matter. Baocam seemed to still not fully understand this plot. She asked, young miss, why did you drink it if you knew the wine was poisoned? The crown prince standing outside the door also had the same question. He pondered, why did she drink it if she knew it was poisoned? But contrary to Baocam's worry and tension, Tui answered in a cheerful and innocent tone, because I wanted to protect him. I didn't want him to get hurt. My constitution is especially normal. Poison won't affect me at all. But the crown prince is different from me. He's just an ordinary person. If he drank that wine, he could have died immediately. If lucky, he might have only been left half alive. The crown prince standing outside suddenly felt a strange emotion. He paused deep in thought, because until now, no one in this palace has protected me. In the eyes of ordinary people, I'm someone who doesn't need protection. It seemed both were unaware of the crown prince's presence outside the door. Inside the room, Baocam continued to ask naive questions. Why didn't you just tell the crown prince directly that the wine was poisoned? Tui shook her head. The crown prince wouldn't believe me. Don't you understand? He's very cautious. After speaking, Tui covered her face in thought. Luo Qinghan, as the crown prince, sees all other princes and everyone as enemies. His body is the target of criticism, so he can't trust anyone at all. Then Tui rubbed her flat stomach and said, Baocam, I'm so hungry. Baocam patted her chest confidently and replied, don't worry, just rest. Your servant will go prepare some delicious food for you. With that, Baocam turned to go out. As soon as she opened the door, the little maid Baocam was startled by the crown prince's appearance right in front of the door. She hurriedly bowed deeply to Luo Qinghan. Your servant greets your highness the crown prince. In her mind, she thought, when did the crown prince arrive? How did I not hear a single sound? The crown prince gently waved his hand and said, if you have business, go quickly. Then he entered the room. Tui, hearing this, exclaimed in surprise, your highness. She was about to sit up to pay her respects to him, but Luo Qinghan gently approached to stop her. You're still ill, so you're excused from ceremony. Only then did Tui lie back down. She happily replied, thank you, your highness. The crown prince came to her bedside and looked at her without saying a word. No one knew what was behind that frozen face, what he was thinking. Then his eyes showed sadness mixed with self-blame. Tui, seeing him staring at her, nervously asked, why is your highness looking at me so intently? Luo Qinghan gently replied, in the future, you don't need to do that. This crown prince doesn't need anyone's protection. Tui softly responded with an M, then curled up under the blanket like a little caterpillar. She thought to herself, I didn't expect that in this situation, he still doesn't want to trust. Suddenly, Luo Qinghan reached out to pat her head. Tui froze, as this gesture was a bit too intimate, because until now, the crown prince had never been so gentle with her. So she unconsciously exclaimed, your highness. Luo Qinghan spoke, as if instantly closing the distance between them. If you encounter such a situation again in the future, you can tell me directly. I will trust you. The crown prince's gentleness made Tui feel as if money had just fallen on her head. Her heart was overjoyed. It was like hitting her head 5 million times until dizzy. The crown prince really trusts me. Suddenly, the crown prince reached out to touch her face. He looked straight into her eyes. Her clear eyes made Luo Qinghan think to himself, these eyes are truly too pure. without a trace of impurity. Facing Qiu He's clear gaze, Luo Qinghan worried that after a long time in the palace, living amidst schemes and plots, she would certainly no longer have such eyes. In his heart, he perhaps felt a bit of emotion stirring. Luo Qinghan sat down on the bed and gently asked, "You just said your constitution is special. Ordinary poisons can't harm you." But Qiu He seemed a bit shy as she replied, "This is your servant's secret. I can't say." Qiu He waved her small hand mysteriously. "But if your highness wants to know, come closer. I'll whisper it to your highness. Come here, come close. Don't let others hear." The crown prince was a bit stunned hearing this, but he still leaned down and moved closer to her. Qiu He leaned in to whisper in his ear, "When I was little, I was greedy and careless and ate some poisoned food. I almost died. My master, in order to protect me, used a method of treating poison with poison. So my resistance increased greatly." She continued whispering to him, "Like the potent poison last night, it will make your servant a bit weak, but won't endanger my life." The two were very close at this moment. This position was a bit embarrassing, but it's okay. I like it. Chong Gong Gong, standing guard outside, understood and turned to look out the window, telling himself he didn't see anything. Didn't see anything at all. The crown prince also went along, whispering into her ear in reply, "So you've been greedy since childhood. You can put anything in your mouth. Aren't you afraid that one day your life won't be there to eat anymore?" Qiu He, hearing this, calmly displayed her reasoning, answering him, "People die sooner or later anyway. Why can't your servant eat her fill and then die? At least I can be a full ghost." Luo Qinghan, hearing this, was at a loss for words and said nothing. After a while, he poked her cheek and said, "Don't be like that. Oh, my wife's so cheesy." The crown prince's usually cold face is too much right now. At this moment, Bao Cam suddenly brought breakfast and called excitedly, "Young miss." Seeing the crown prince and her young mistress so close together, she also blushed and then hurriedly turned to leave, thinking to herself, I didn't see anything at all. You two just continue." Qiu He, seeing Bao Cam, quickly called out to her, "Why are you running? Is that breakfast? Quickly bring it here. I'm about to starve to death." She asked Luo Qinghan, "Your highness probably hasn't had breakfast yet, right? Would you like to dine with me?" While saying this outwardly, Qiu He smiled mischievously and thought to herself, "Last time he didn't eat the hot pot. He probably won't eat this time either. All the delicious food will be mine alone." Actually, she was just inviting him casually, but the crown prince didn't refuse at all. He quickly nodded in agreement. All right. This startled her. The development wasn't like the script in her head. Chong Gong Gong behind the curtain also looked dumbfounded with surprise. Puzzled, he thought to himself, the crown prince has never dined with any consorts before. Today he's breaking the rule to eat together. This is truly rare. The sun rose high. The clear sky heralded a beautiful sunny day. The plates of food on the table had already been dealt with by Qiu He neatly and cleanly. Indeed, she truly had a bottomless stomach. After a while, her face showed joy and satisfaction. "I'm so full." She rubbed her stomach, which had become round from eating so much. Her vitality must be overflowing now. Luo Qinghan picked up a cup of tea, preparing to enjoy it, and gently asked her, "How do you feel now? Are you still unwell?" Qiu He hugged her stomach, putting on a pitiful expression, and replied, "I'm still not feeling well. Perhaps I'll need to rest for a while longer to fully recover." Luo Qinghan used an evaluating gaze to ask, "What? If you're not well, how did you just eat so much?" She quickly replied, "This servant is still young. My body is still developing, so I need to eat a bit more." The crown prince looked at her with judging eyes. Still young in age. Indeed, her face still had childlike features, like a flower bud that hasn't fully bloomed. Then his gaze suddenly shifted elsewhere. It turned out the crown prince was looking at her chest. "Oh!" Xiao He panicked, covered herself, and said loudly, "Your Highness, where are you looking?" The crown prince remained calm. "Do you think you have anything for me to look at?" Xiao He felt insulted. She thought sadly to herself, "Though I'm flat-chested now, my body is still developing." Then she angrily replied, "This servant's body is still developing. Your Highness shouldn't look down on me." Hearing this, the crown prince's lips curved into a slight smile. He quickly regained his usual serious expression and said, "Oh, let's wait and see." As they were talking intimately, a young eunuch entered and interrupted. "Crown Prince, your Highness, His Majesty summons you to the council hall." So the two bid farewell. Luo Qing'an said, I'll go first. You rest for now. I'll come visit again in the evening. Hearing this, Xiao Hihi asked, should I wait for you to dine together in the evening? Luo Qing'an didn't say anything, just looked at her, while Xiao Hihi's face remained cheerful, innocently sitting there waiting for an answer. After a moment, Luo Qing'an gently responded with a sound as if confirming. The crown prince turned and left. The maids also bowed respectfully. As soon as they left, Baocam 5 flew in like a gust of wind, excitedly saying, Miss, you finally learned to compete for favor by inviting him to dinner. Hearing this, Xiao Hihi felt very confused. While chewing, she replied, what competition for favor? Her expression was like saying, what nonsense are you talking about? Baokam's eyes shone like stars. She praised, Mrs. Very clever, then continued, didn't you just invite His Highness to stay at Chinga Palace for dinner? After dinner, His Highness will surely stay at Chinga Palace to rest. By then, you'll certainly receive His Highness's favor. She was overjoyed. Finally, this servant can live to see this scene. Ignoring Baokam's chatter, Xiao Hihi kept eating, looking very satisfied. But then after that, as if the information had just been processed, she suddenly felt itchy, covered her face, and asked in panic, favor. What? Favor? Who wants favor? Me goodness. I just casually asked out of habit. I didn't mean it that way. It was just for the sake of appearance, wanting to be polite to him a little bit. Who knew he would agree? Xiao Hihi's face looked as if she was about to face a great disaster. Finally, she understood the meaning behind the crown prince's gaze before he left the room. Then Xiao Hihi collapsed tiredly, lamenting, I was poisoned last night. I almost died. I can't even get out of bed now. Where would I find the strength to serve him? It's truly inhumane to pressure someone like this. I'm this sick, and you still want him to sleep with me. I'm so miserable. Baocam tilted her head, thinking, you're still ill. According to palace rules, those who are sick are not allowed to serve. Hearing this, Xiao Hihi sighed in relief. Fortunately, there are still some humane rules in this palace. That's reassuring. Baocam started to get anxious again. Miss, what are you relieved about? Then Baocam couldn't hold back and began explaining to her again. You've worked hard to get this opportunity to be with His Highness. If you can't serve him, you should at least find a way to leave a good impression on His Highness. That way, the Crown Prince will have a good impression of you in the future. Later on, His Highness will come to Chinga Palace more often. You can also maintain his favor for a long time. Baocam kept talking on and on, while Xiao He curled up in her blanket, pretending not to hear anything. Baocam talked for a long time, seeing her mistress curled up in the blanket like a cocoon, not moving at all. She felt helpless and thought to herself, forget it. The miss won't listen no matter what I say. The miss's body is still very weak. I'd better go make some nourishing food for her. Instead, the scene changes to the council hall. The news of the crown prince being poisoned had spread, and the emperor had also learned about it. He summoned the crown prince and the first prince and asked sternly, do you think it was the first prince who poisoned you? Luo Qing'an hadn't had a chance to speak when the first prince interrupted. Father, I didn't poison him. I've been wronged. The emperor's face darkened as he shouted, shut up. Realizing he had been a bit out of line, the first prince could only bow his head to the ground, obeying the order. The emperor continued, Crown Prince, I want to hear your thoughts. Do you really think this was done by the first prince? Luo Qing'an calmly replied, Big Brother certainly isn't the one who poisoned me. Although we are brothers with some conflicts, but Big Brother wouldn't go so far as to poison me. I think this must be someone trying to use Big Brother's hand to frame him. He continued, if the plan had succeeded, I would have died, and Big Brother would have been executed. Then one arrow would have hit two birds. After hearing this, the emperor's face relaxed a bit. He looked at the first prince and asked, did you hear what the crown prince said? He quickly replied, yes, I have heard, father. He continued to look down with a cold and stern gaze. He said, you were just crying out that the crown prince wanted to frame you. The first prince hurriedly knelt down and apologized. Yes, I was too narrow-minded. I accept punishment. The emperor pondered. He swept his gaze over all the princes present. He seriously said to everyone, I know you are all dissatisfied with the third prince being named crown prince, but you are brothers. The blood flowing in your veins is the same. I absolutely do not allow brothers in the family to harm each other. Have you all heard clearly? The princes all knelt down, bowed their heads, and shouted loudly, we obey, father. The audience cast a gray shadow outside the great hall. As the conversation ended, Luo Qing'an left the court. Stepping outside, he thought to himself, Father hopes we can love and care for each other, protect one another. But born in this deep and treacherous palace, facing the temptation of power, how many can maintain that will? Eunuch Chong, following him, spoke up to ask Luo Qing'an, "Your Highness, are you going to the Eastern Palace now?" He replied, "Go to Xiaofeng Palace." The sunlight still shone brightly on Xiaofeng Palace, as if this peaceful scene couldn't reveal the undercurrents within. At this moment, in the Empress's chambers, the Empress knew her son had nearly been poisoned, but didn't show any concern. Her face remained as cold as usual. She said, "I heard you were poisoned yesterday." Luo Qing'an respectfully reported, in response to Mother Empress, "I did not drink that poisoned cup of wine, so my body is not in any danger." The Empress's eyes were stern as she looked straight at him and said, "I don't want to ask about that. I just want to know how you will handle this matter." Luo Qing'an was slightly disappointed. He thought to himself, "I knew early on that Mother Empress doesn't care whether I was poisoned or not. She also doesn't need to know if it's good or bad. Basically, she only cares about this position of Crown Prince." Nevertheless, he still respectfully replied, "I have already sent people to investigate. We will have results very soon." Empress Qin looked at the Crown Prince with cold eyes and continued, "You'll have results tomorrow then. You were raised by my own hands. For you, I've invested countless efforts. You should know this clearly in your heart." She asked Luo Qing'an a question. "Don't disappoint me, understand? Such a cold mother truly makes one's heart ache." Luo Qing'an respectfully replied, "I understand. I will certainly not disappoint you, Empress Mother. Please rest now. I take my leave." The conversation between mother and son ended just like that. There wasn't a single word of heart-to-heart talk or any normal concern. The scene changes to the Crown Prince returning to the Eastern Palace. He sat at the desk reading investigation documents. His subordinates around him were huddled in discussion. Eunuch Chong spoke up, "Your Highness, you haven't eaten yet. Why don't you have your meal first?" He was so focused on the investigation that he didn't want to eat. "No need. I'm not hungry." He skipped lunch entirely. He called all his trusted aides to investigate the matter. Knowing that the Empress demanded results of the investigation by tomorrow, the young Duke Nie Chongping couldn't help but worry. "The Empress is truly too strict with your Highness, and her standards have always been very high," the imperial tutor said with a worried expression. "The Empress seems to disregard the Crown Prince's life too much." Nie Chongping laughed, indicating he knew everything, as he had been friends with Luo Qing'an since childhood, so he understood the Crown Prince's affairs very well. Luo Qing'an lost his mother at a young age. He was then sent to Xiaofeng Palace to be raised by Empress Qin. Empress Qin, due to a premature birth in her youth, suffered physical damage, making her unable to bear children thereafter. Coincidentally, Luo Qing'an had no mother. He had no one to rely on in the harem, and could only depend on the Empress to survive. Thus, the Empress put all her efforts into raising Luo Qing'an, helping him secure the position of Crown Prince. Nie Chongping pondered thoughtfully, but to put it bluntly, this mutually beneficial relationship of theirs is just about using each other. At that moment, a confidant arrived, interrupting Nie Chongping's train of thought. He knelt down and reported, "Your Highness, I have found that there was no poison in the wine itself. It was the cup. The cup had been smeared with poison. So from the wine bottle to the wine, there was no poison. Only that particular cup was poisoned." Luo Qing'an suddenly spoke up. "In other words, if last night the Crown Prince hadn't come to pour wine for me, then just by taking a sip, I would have been poisoned immediately." Nie Chongping suddenly clapped his hands together, as if realizing something. He exclaimed, "Oh, so that's how it is. The Crown Prince was just a scapegoat." The scene changes to inside the Yuliandian. Fruits, tea, and pastries were laid out on the table. Bai Sifi and Chen Lianyuan were discussing the banquet from that day. "Sister, I heard that at yesterday's birthday celebration, something big happened." "What happened?" Chen Lianyuan replied, "Xiao Liandi was poisoned. I heard she even vomited blood and fell unconscious. She was nearly dead, but fortunately, the imperial physician saved her life. That girl really has a strong life force." Bai Sifi beside her side, pretending to be sympathetic as she replied, "Xiao Yandi is truly pitiful to be hurt like that for no reason." But seemingly seeing through Bai Sifi's heart, Chen Lianyuan inwardly mocked her. This White Lotus is really putting on an act here. Nevertheless, Chen Lianyuan still tried to curry favor with Bai Sifi. "Sister, you don't need to sympathize with her." Then she continued, "Sister, you're truly too kind-hearted. I feel that Xiao Liandi brought this upon herself. If she hadn't seduced His Highness the Crown Prince to take her to the birthday celebration, she wouldn't have been poisoned." Bai Sifi waved her hand, pretending to be tired, and said, After all, we are sisters. With her encountering such a thing, how can I sit idly by and do nothing? By rights, I should go visit Xiaoyandi, but my body has been unwell these past 2 days, feeling a bit uncomfortable. Then, putting on the most saintly and virtuous face possible, she hinted to Chun Lianyuan, little sister, if you're free, could you go to Qingga Palace on my behalf to visit Xiaoyandi for a bit? Chun Lianyuan put on a fake industrial smile, pretending to agree, and replied, all right. I happen to have nothing to do, so I'll go over to see her. Once outside, she immediately changed her expression and thought to herself, by CFI, sickly and weak, gentle and virtuous. But in reality, she's an old fox. She's a white lotus flower. She deliberately acts weak, but in fact, she's scheming against everyone. This woman is truly two-faced. Then angrily grabbing a branch by the road, she thought furiously, I flatter her a bit to be able to use her, but I haven't gained any benefit from her at all. This woman wants to reap without sowing, huh? Doesn't she know what some philosopher said? He who does not work, neither shall he eat. Then this woman suddenly changed course and started being jealous of Xiao Liangdi. Clearly I entered the palace before Liang Tiaohe. Yet she was taken by the crown prince to the birthday celebration, while I wasn't. How am I inferior to her in any way? Poor thing, I wonder if she even has a mirror in her private chambers. After a moment of calculation, she couldn't figure out any advantage or disadvantage. Finally, she left in a huff, swaying her hips as she went. The scene changes to the main cast. After eating and drinking without a care in the world, only obsessed with food and ignoring worldly affairs, Xiao Liandi, who had been bedridden all morning, was about to go for a walk to aid digestion. By the way, she wanted to eavesdrop on the domineering rooster and his harem. She glanced around and noticed something. Xiao He pointed and said to Baocam, look there. Why is that hen moving so little? Is it sick because it's too weak? Baocam felt confused but still replied to her. If so, let this servant go call the veterinarian to check on it. What? Do we need a vet to examine chickens too? But clearly, Baocam didn't understand her mistress's intentions. Obviously, her purpose wasn't as humane as that. Xiao He wiped her drool and smiled greedily. No need, just put it directly in the pot to stew. It's good for me and good for it. It's a win-win situation. Hearing this, Baocam was truly at a loss for words. Because either way, that hen was going to be eliminated. Xiao He saw Baocam looking at her like that and turned to ask, why are you looking at me like that? Baocam coldly shook her finger. Your body is still very weak. Your stomach can't digest much yet. You can't eat anything too greasy. Xiao He started to argue. With a determined look, she said, but if I don't eat the chicken, the crown prince can eat it. Doesn't he want to come to our place for dinner tonight? Why don't we serve him some chicken to treat him well? He'll develop a good impression of us. Her mind doesn't seem like it's ill at all. It's very agile. Indeed, it was a successful psychological manipulation, and before she finished speaking, Baekam's eyes lit up brightly. Young miss, you're truly intelligent. If His Highness the Crown Prince develops a good impression of us, he'll come to Qingga Palace more often. Then you'll have a chance to be summoned to his bed. Finally, Baocam understood. Xiao He waved her hand, indicating that wasn't the case. She said, no. If he eats and finds it delicious, with a face as if she had caught a god of fortune, she exclaimed loudly. Then in the future, we'll be allowed to expand the chicken coop. At that time, we'll raise more chickens and ducks. Then we'll have chicken and duck meat to eat every day. She was overjoyed, as if she had never been so happy before. Hearing this, Baekam's face darkened as she thought to herself, I'm so stupid. How could I think that my mistress was thinking of ways to compete for favor? This is truly a groundbreaking idea. Although feeling utterly hopeless, she still stewed the lazy chicken for Xiao He. The sound of the simmering pot on the stove was like the joyful sound of Miss Zhao's heart. The aroma of chicken meat wafted out. Xiao He was almost drooling with desire. She sniffed the fragrant smell coming from the pot with a satisfied expression. The chicken Baocam cooked really smells delicious. The appeal of the food made her extremely eager. She was as happy as a child about to receive a gift. Crown Prince, hurry up. Once you arrive, Baocam will let me have a tiny bit of chicken. Can there be such simple joys? Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. Just as she was happy, the string snapped. When hungry relatives come to visit, this time it wasn't relatives. After waiting for the crown prince in vain, there was an uninvited guest who arrived. It was Chun Lianyuan. A moment later, she entered the room and greeted Xiao Liandi first. This younger sister greets elder sister. But Xiao He quickly interrupted, Wait a moment. Seeing her, Xiao He blinked and said, I clearly remember you're 2 years older than me. I should be the one calling you elder sister. Words can be quite hurtful. Chun Liangyuan inwardly resented. You want to use age to make yourself seem younger and put me down, don't you? Her heart was full of malicious thoughts. But what could she do? Chun Liangyuan maintained a warm smile on her face and replied, Elder sister is joking. Although I'm a bit older than you, your status is higher than mine. Logically, I should still call you elder sister to be respectful. She leaned on the table and spoke without pause. I heard that elder sister attended the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet with His Highness the Crown Prince last night, but was poisoned. My sister and I were truly very worried about you. But looking at your rosy complexion, it seems there's nothing to worry about, right? Xiao He wanted to use illness as an excuse to be legitimately lazy. She thought to herself, yes, I'm still using the excuse of recuperating to be a salty fish. I can't let you see that I've recovered. Otherwise, I'll have to serve him again. Xiao He immediately switched to acting mode, coughed a few times, and then continued. I may look rosy-cheeked, but inside I'm weak and my kidneys are deficient. I can't do anything. The imperial physician said this poisoning has injured me, and I need a very long time to recover. At least 2 or 3 years of rest and recuperation. This woman seems to be talking nonsense. Resting for 2 or 3 years, is she planning to retire? But Chun Liangyuan judged others by her own standards. She was cunning, thinking that Xiao He was poisoned because of the Crown Prince this time. As long as she's not fully recovered, the Crown Prince will still have a reason to visit her. She was angry and secretly cursed Xiao He. Xiao Yandi, you little bitch, are you still trying to show off? But in this imperial palace, what people are best at is playing the role of a white lotus. So she put on a fake smile and said, Sister, your health is not good. You can't move around all day. Lying in Chinga Palace all day must be very boring, right? We don't have anything to do either. How about I come to visit you every day from now on? I'll chat with you to keep you from feeling lonely, okay? But she didn't have such good intentions. As the ancient said, behind a tasty bait is a dead fish. Saying such sincere words, but in her heart, she was secretly calculating. I don't care if you're really sick or not, but as long as I'm here, the Crown Prince will surely come and go from this place. He's bound to run into me a few times. At that time, I can take this opportunity to show off in front of the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince will surely have a good impression of me. Then I'll definitely be able to compete for his favor. While Chun Liangyuan was still calculating, she suddenly heard Xiao Liandi's weak voice. There's no need to trouble you. The imperial physician said I need peace and quiet to recover. It's best not to have anyone disturbing me. You should go. A perfect cold shower, scoring 10 points. But before she could plan her next move, Chun Liangyuan's plan fell apart. Her face darkened as she cursed Xiao He. This bitch is trying to drive me away. She forced a smile and replied, Is that so? Then I've been too abrupt. I hope sister doesn't mind. The atmosphere couldn't be more awkward. Xiao He covered her mouth and yawned, with an expression of just wanting to lie down and pass out. Then Xiao He yawned sleepily. Her eyelids drooped involuntarily. Her whole body seemed boneless as she leaned back. Bao Cam was very professional. She quickly placed a pillow underneath for her to lean on more comfortably. Then Bao Cam frowned at Tran Luongveen, blaming this stupid Tran Luongveen. She couldn't see that the mistress clearly wanted her to leave. How could she still have the face to sit here, stubbornly? But being someone who lacked shame, Tran Luongveen was unwilling to leave empty-handed like that. Suddenly she took a deep breath and asked, I think I smell chicken. Are you making chicken soup? But I remember you're sick, sister. You shouldn't eat chicken soup. Those animal fats are not good for you. Indeed, she was as slippery as an eel. Tuhi was now frustrated because she couldn't chase this pest away, so she indifferently replied, That's right, but it's not for me to eat. It's for His Highness the Crown Prince. Hearing this, Tran Luongveen's eyes lit up. The Crown Prince is coming to Tan Xie Palace today. Indeed, seeing the target ahead, she would bite and not let go even if it killed her. Tran Luongveen rejoiced secretly. I must stay here until the Crown Prince arrives. Just giving this scented sachet to the Crown Prince will surely make him notice me. Her face revealed a clear, scheming expression. Thinking and acting, she proactively flattered Tu He. When I was still in my mother's house, I used to make chicken soup for her. My cooking skills are not bad. Why don't I help you, sister, to check on that chicken soup? Tu-hee looked at her behavior and could guess. I'm just lazy, not stupid. I know exactly what you want to do. Not pretending to be naive like her. Tu He's eyes turned cold as she asked, "You care so much about my chicken soup. Are you craving it?" Tu He deliberately pointed and teased her. "How greedy." Tran Luong Vien blushed and replied, "I'm not." In her heart, she was furious and screamed internally. A normal person in this situation would at least pretend to be polite. But this little bitch just says it all out loud. Then she gritted her teeth and cursed silently in her heart. Did dogs eat all her manners? But to say she was two-faced wasn't wrong either. Although cursing in her heart, on the surface, Tran Luong Vien still forced an ugly smile and replied, "Haha, I was just joking. You didn't take that seriously, did you, sister?" As she was speaking, she looked up and saw Bao Cam coming out. One hand pointed at Xiao He on the bed, as if wanting to say, "Shut up and let my little master rest." It turned out little master Xiao He was so tired she had fallen asleep. Chun Liang Yuan was even more resentful now. Her inner voice screamed, "Damn it, I'm still sitting here talking, yet this bitch dares to go to sleep. However, she doesn't take me seriously, so just wait. Wait until I'm favored by the crown prince, then see how I'll torment her to death." She was pulling her hair in frustration, but couldn't do anything about it. It said she had thrown her dignity in the corner of her house. Despite being ignored like this, she told herself, "I must meet the crown prince. I must hold on tight and not let go." Time passed like this. The sunlight had faded, replaced by a sky that had turned blue and then pitch black. Chun Liang Yuan seemed to have not seen the crown prince for a long time. Because she wanted the crown prince to know she still existed, she shamelessly waited in Xiao Liangdi's chamber from noon until late at night, to the point where Xiao He fell asleep, but she still couldn't bear to leave. Xiao He slept soundly on the bed. Chun Liang Yuan sat waiting, tired, hungry, and angry. She couldn't stand it anymore and finally opened her mouth to ask, "What time is it now? You've been stewing chicken soup for so long. Can it still be drunk?" Bao Kai replied softly and indifferently, "You don't need to worry. There are people watching in the kitchen. They will know what to do." She angrily clutched the hem of her dress. Anger rising to her head, she slammed the table and then shouted, "Xiao Liangdi." Xiao He, who was sleeping, was startled awake. She sat up, rubbed her eyes, and asked, "What's going on?" "You haven't left yet." Chun Liang Yuan was extremely resentful. She spoke in an accusatory tone. "Didn't you say His Highness the Crown Prince would come to Qingga Palace today? Why hasn't His Highness arrived even at this hour? Did you deliberately deceive me, making me wait until now?" Xiao He, still drowsy, heard this and asked, "Huh? The crown prince hasn't arrived yet." Bao Kai replied, "Do you want to go ask His Highness why he hasn't come?" Xiao He yawned, "No need. He must be busy with something to handle. Let's just wait a bit longer." Chun Liang Yuan thought to herself, "This Xiao Liangdi is playing with me. It's already midnight. There's not even a shadow of the crown prince." She angrily shouted, "Xiao Liangdi, today you must give me a reasonable explanation." She yelled as if she had taken the wrong medicine. "You deceived me, saying His Highness the Crown Prince would come to Qingga Palace today. But basically he didn't come." Xiao He replied in shock, "I didn't lie. I just don't know when the crown prince will arrive." Chun Liang Yuan trembled with anger and continued shouting, "Are you still playing dumb? Xiao Liangdi, I didn't expect that your innocent and foolish appearance is actually just a facade. You and Bai Cfi are the same, both scheming. On the outside, innocent and pitiful, but inside, cruel and ruthless." At this point, she was tired of pretending and decided to show her true colors. Suddenly, a voice spoke from behind. "Who are you calling cruel and ruthless?" She was in the midst of her tirade, so she carelessly replied without thinking, "I'm calling you cruel and ruthless." Before she could finish, she suddenly startled, turned around, and felt something was not right. It was the crown prince's voice. She turned around and saw the crown prince standing at the door, which made her jump in surprise. She didn't know how long he had been standing there. She didn't know what he had heard. Luo Qinghan entered and looked at her with an ice-cold expression. Chun Liang Yuan trembled in fear. In her heart, she cried out in panic, "Crown Prince." Then she hurriedly knelt down. She shouted, trying to explain, "Greetings, Crown Prince." "Crown Prince, please let me explain." The Crown Prince maintained his cold demeanor and raised his eyes to look at her. "Explain what?" Chun Liang Yuan was scared and worried. Trembling, she answered Luo Qinghan, "Crown Prince, just now I was talking nonsense. I know I was wrong. Please, Your Highness, don't take those words to heart." Luo Qinghan turned to ask Xiao He, "Xiao Liangdi, tell me why Chun Liang Yuan was scolding you." Xiao He then spoke without pause, recounting everything to the Crown Prince. "Well, so this afternoon Chun Liang Yuan came to visit my Qingga Palace. She saw me cooking chicken and asked about it. She learned that your highness was coming here for dinner tonight. Xiao Hihi continued with a calm expression, so she sat for a long time, refusing to leave. After waiting for too long, she woke me up and asked why your highness still hadn't arrived. I told her that your highness must be busy and couldn't come yet. Just wait, and suddenly she became furious. Maybe she was too hungry, that's why. After hearing this, Luo Qinghan glanced at Chen Liangyuan. His eyes showed even more disgust. Then he spoke, giving an order, guards, take her back to her palace. Reduce her salary for the next 3 months. From now on, she is not allowed to set foot in Qingga Palace. A short and sweet solution, concise and badass, yo. That's lit, fam. Tran Luong Vin's face darkened with anger as she silently blamed. If today's events spread outside, then the entire Eastern Palace will know that I've been shunned by the Crown Prince. Then won't I be trampled on and despised by them? I don't want to live like that. So she desperately hugged the Crown Prince's legs and started to play pitiful while lamenting. Your Highness, do you remember the first time we met? Do you recall what you said? Before the Crown Prince could answer, she continued babbling. You praised my name as very pleasant to the ear. You even gifted me an orchid pot. I still grow it to this day. Then she searched for something in her sleeve. While searching, she said, I even made a special sachet from those orchids. I embroidered it myself. As she finished speaking, she pulled out a purple sachet and held it up to Luo Qinghan, saying, Your Highness, I beg you to accept this sachet out of consideration for me. Such a heartfelt confession, coupled with Tran Luong Vin's teary eyes, would surely soften the heart of any ordinary man. But the Crown Prince only coldly replied, I find this name very nice, but it truly doesn't suit you. Hearing this, Tran Luong Vin panicked. Her face drained of all color. She was about to say something more, but the Crown Prince, with an ice-cold expression, gave her no more chances. He waved his hand, ordering people to drag her out. When the Crown Prince is this angry, it's truly over. After dealing with Tran Luong Vin, the atmosphere in the bedchamber became heavy. The Crown Prince silently sat by Xiao Hihi's bed without saying a word. Suddenly, the Crown Prince glanced at Xiao Hihi, making her feel uneasy and very awkward. Her intuition told her that His Highness the Crown Prince seemed to be in a bad mood. Perhaps I should comfort him. But she didn't know how to comfort him, so she cheerfully asked the Crown Prince if he had eaten yet. Luo Qinghan, after a day of investigation, of course hadn't eaten yet. Xiao Hihi eagerly continued, I haven't eaten either. I was waiting to eat with you. Somehow, upon hearing this, his gloomy mood suddenly improved. Luo Qinghan gently said to Xiao Hihi, I was so busy today that I forgot about the time. Next time I won't be like this again. Xiao Hihi was overjoyed to hear this. She hummed happily and smiled from ear to ear. At this moment, the entire room had brightened up with the lit lamps. Steaming food had been laid out on the table, looking very appetizing. The room was filled with the aroma of food. Xiao Hihi was so hungry, she felt faint, but she still remembered her position and role. So she ladled the stewed chicken for the Crown Prince first and said cheerfully, Your Highness, please eat first. Her expression looked as if she was about to take bitter medicine. She was so hungry she could get cranky, but had to keep up appearances, which was exhausting. She thought to herself that being a consort was really unpleasant, having to wait for the Crown Prince to start eating before she could eat. She was about to die of hunger. At this moment, the Crown Prince also picked up a bowl of stewed chicken and began to taste it. Seeing the Crown Prince take his first bite, Xiao Hihi took it as a starting signal. She immediately started picking up food and eating continuously as if she had been starved. Baocam beside her was at a loss for words and pretended to be a statue, not hearing or seeing anything. Luo Qinghan, seeing her eat like a reincarnated hungry ghost, gently reminded her, eating too fast is not good for your stomach. Xiao Hihi didn't pay much attention. She was enjoying the pleasure of eating, so while eating rice, she just mumbled a soft to acknowledge it and move on. Just a moment later, Xiao Hihi had already finished 3 bowls of rice. Her hand was still enthusiastically picking up more food. Baocam, standing outside, also felt frightened by her speed of destroying food. Baocam thought to herself that she must stop her mistress. She couldn't let the image of a virtuous lady of her mistress collapse. So she came to remind Xiao Hihi, Miss, you must be full now. But Xiao Hihi didn't understand the hint. She licked her lips like a little cat and quickly replied, No, I'm still hungry and want to eat more. Baocam was desperate, her inner voice screaming. Other consorts in front of the Crown Prince all put on a delicate and virtuous act, eating like ants. Yet our mistress, time and time again, shows that she's never satisfied with 8,000 meals. With such a bottomless pit of a stomach, it's no different from embarrassing herself. Suddenly, Luo Qinghan handed his bowl to Xiao Hihi. Xiao Hihi looked up and asked, "Your Highness, do you want another bowl?" He replied, "I want to drink some soup." Xiao Hihi happily answered, "All right." She was so busy eating that she got a rice grain stuck on her lip. Luo Qinghan immediately noticed this small detail. Finally unable to resist, he still reminded her, "You have rice on your mouth." Xiao Hihi confusedly touched the corner of her mouth and asked, "Here." He looked at her and replied, "No, it's here." The crown prince couldn't bear it and reached out to brush it off for her. He continued to wipe her mouth. He softly said, "Here too." His caring gesture and warm words stunned her for a moment. Then he took the handkerchief handed by the little eunuch to wipe his hands. With a calm face, he said, "It's done," as if it was nothing worth mentioning. But the action just now was like an event that shook the three realms. This scene left Eunuch Chang stunned and shocked. Heavens, the crown prince wiped rice off Xiao Liangdi's face. It's truly a once-in-a-century sight. Xiao Hihi smiled brightly like a flower and said, "Thank you, brother." She said, "Thank you, Crown Prince." The Crown Prince actually helped Xiao Liangdi wipe her face, showing himself to be a very righteous person. She tilted the pot and poured all the chicken soup into the Crown Prince's bowl, thinking to herself, to repay the favor of wiping her mouth, she'll give him this chicken soup, although she was craving it herself. Seeing this scene, Eunuch Chang's face showed a bit of worry as he thought to himself, "Don't, Xiao Liangdi. Our Crown Prince doesn't like chicken soup like that." But right after that came a slap in the face for Eunuch Chang. The Crown Prince took the bowl of soup and started drinking it with relish. Seeing this, Eunuch Chang turned ashen-faced and had to change his thoughts. All right then, Luo Qinghan only drank half the bowl before feeling full. He gently put the bowl down on the table. Xiao He saw this and excitedly asked, "Your Highness, are you full already? Can I have the leftover chicken soup?" Hearing this, Bao Qin behind her immediately showed a horrified expression. Bao Qin wished she could cover her mouth right away. Feeling irritated inside, our mistress even ate 4 bowls of rice. And now she even wants to finish the crown prince's leftover chicken soup. Heavens, how could she disregard her dignity for food like this? Luo Qinghan looked at her, not knowing what to say. After a long while, he finally replied, "You can't." Xiao He put on a pitiful expression and asked why. The crown prince said sternly, "The chicken soup is too oily and greasy. You're still recovering and need to be on a diet." Xiao He softly spoke in a pitiful tone, "I've been eating bland vegetable soup and porridge all day. My mouth is about to go bland too." Then she put on an expression of craving, almost drooling, and said, "Besides, this chicken soup doesn't look too oily. It still seems quite light." She prepared to pick up the bowl of soup to drink it herself. Ignoring her words, the crown prince ordered someone to take the chicken soup away. He was determined not to let her drink it. Eunuch Chang bowed his head and said, "Yes, Your Highness." Xiao He, not allowed to eat, cried boohoo there. She felt devastated. She felt as if neither her father nor mother loved her. Eunuch Chang dared not disobey and took the bowl of soup away, while the crown prince could only look at her speechlessly. After finishing the meal, Xiao Liangdi and the crown prince sat together enjoying hot tea. The two sat facing each other, but their demeanors were completely opposite. As much as the crown prince exuded elegance, Tiu He appeared carefree and lacking in etiquette. Tiu He turned and spoke softly to Lacton Han. "Your Highness, are you facing some troublesome matter? If your Highness trusts this servant, and if you don't mind, you can speak about the worries in your heart. This servant might be able to help you." Hearing this, Lacton Han began to question her. "Why do you want to help me? First, you gave me a protective charm. Now you're drinking poison in my place. You even loudly declared you want to protect me. I don't understand why you treat me so well." He was about to flatter him, but the crown prince quickly cut her off. "Don't try to deceive me with sweet words. I want to hear your honest thoughts." Only then did He open up. "To be honest, when this servant left her master, I accepted a mission from my master. It was to find a person with destiny and help him ascend to the throne." Lacton Han calmly asked again, "The person with destiny you chose is me." He scratched her chin, silently thinking about why she chose Lacton Han. "I'm a person without ambition or grand dreams. Of course, I'd prefer to avoid trouble when possible. After all, the crown prince is closest to the throne." Thinking of this, she let out a soft as if confirming. He asked further, "So you're saying that from the moment you chose to enter the palace, you had already planned how to approach me?" She gently responded with another Then too, he frowned with worry. I've used all my efforts to get close to Tanhan, all with a purpose. Now that he knows the truth, he must be very disappointed in me. At this moment, the crown prince turned to stare at her. He asked, does your master's mission have a time limit? Hearing Chu He answer that there wasn't, Tanhan felt relieved. He gently raised his teacup, preparing to enjoy it. He said it's good that there isn't. The emperor is still in his middle age. In the short term, I won't be able to succeed the throne, you understand. Chu He obediently replied, I understand this cannot be rushed. Then Tanhan began to tell her, today I was investigating the wine poisoning incident. He continued that the guards found no poison in the wine. The poison was in my wine cup. I sent people to find everyone who had contact with the cup and questioned each person thoroughly. Finally, we investigated a palace maid named Dam Hoa. Someone saw Dam Hoa appear in Feng Te Palace with a very worried expression. The guards searched her living quarters, then found that type of poison in a bottle of poison wine. Xiao He interrupted. Then bringing Dam Hoa in for questioning about this matter, of course Tanhan must do it quickly. But he continued, I've sent people to arrest Dam Hoa, but discovered she's nowhere to be found. Tru Hien went to search places where she might appear. Even went to the palace maid's quarters to inquire. All yielded no results. She seems to have vanished into thin air. No one knows where she went. Xiao He asked him, is this what's troubling your highness? The crown prince, a bit dejected, replied, Mother Empress wants me to uncover the truth about the mysterious poison by tomorrow, and today is almost over. But Dam Hoa's whereabouts are unknown. I have no way to present her to Mother Empress. Hearing this, Xiao He suggested a way to him. Your Highness, can you find out Dam Hoa's birth date and time? She enthusiastically told him. I can determine the direction and location of Dam Hoa, but I need to know her exact birth date and time. Tanhan heard this and looked at her, thinking to himself. Unexpectedly, people in the mystical arts, besides being able to find good fortune and avoid misfortune, can also know things without divination. Then he ordered the little eunuch to go to the Internal Affairs Investigation Bureau. The little eunuch bowed his head and obeyed. After a while of searching, the little eunuch presented Xiao He with a piece of paper. The paper she held in her hand clearly stated Dam Hoa's birth date and time. After carefully reading the information on the paper, she put it down. The crown prince was still intently watching her and waiting. Xiao He closed her eyes to focus. Xiao He began to clasp her hands together, preparing to cast a spell. Then she raised her hand to her forehead, as if placing it before her third eye. Around her, a glow of energy began to radiate. In the vision she saw, a dark figure was attacking Dam Hoa. Xiao He instinctively felt uneasy in her heart. Next was the scene of Dam Hoa being thrown into water. Xiao He was under so much pressure, she broke into a sweat. But she didn't stop. She still tried to see Dam Hoa's subsequent condition. Dam Hoa was sinking deeper and deeper underwater. It felt like she was about to suffocate. Suddenly, Xiao He opened her eyes as if realizing something. She exclaimed loudly, Found it! Bao Kai beside her, a bit worried, called out. Mississippi. Xiao He said, 100 meters to the southwest, surrounded by water. That person, she's already dead. Tanhan, upon hearing this, ordered Chang Gong Gong to report to the investigating officer. Without delay, Chang Shi bowed his head in obedience and left. Then he turned to look at Xiao He. After examining the birth chart and using divination to find Dam Hoa's whereabouts, she now seemed exhausted, her face pale. Luo Qinghan said to Xiao He with a worried expression, Your complexion doesn't look good. Do you want me to find a royal physician to examine you? Xiao He's face looked tired, as if about to faint. She must be very exhausted now, but she still refused. No need. I just pressed my fingers earlier to sense Dam Hoa's feelings before death, so I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable. A good sleep will fix it. Hearing her say that, Luo Qinghan gently advised her to get some rest too. I'll come visit you again tomorrow. Then he bid her farewell and left. She respectfully bowed and said, This concubine bids your highness farewell. That night in Crown Prince Luo Qinghan's study, the room was still lit. Inside, the Crown Prince was still busy investigating the truth. Chang Gong reported, Your Highness, Master Zhao has arrived. So he ordered to let him in. Master Zhao Xian hurriedly entered. He presented a jade piece and said, Your Highness, I found this jade piece in the southwest well. There was a body dressed in palace-made attire. On the body was a piece of cloth and a jade necklace. Chang Gonggong took the jade piece and presented it to Luo Qinghan. Zhao Xian continued to report. The name embroidered on the cloth and engraved on this jade seemed to be from the palace. The crown prince examined it for a while. Master Zhao said, "Your servant has investigated this jade. It's likely an item from the palace." According to records, this was from last year's palace inventory, awarded by the Empress Dowager to Consort Ning. Luo Qinghan's eyes now showed a hint of pensiveness. He put the jade piece on the table and said, "You've done well to find this. You've worked hard all night. Go back and rest." Master Zhao stood up and respectfully said, "It's all part of this servant's duty. I dare not speak of hardship. This servant takes his leave. Your Highness should also rest early." As soon as Master Zhao left, Luo Qinghan's expression became unusually serious. He stared at the jade piece and said, "Consort Ning." Scene changes to Xiaofeng Hall. The new empress was in the garden admiring the blooming flowers. Luo Qinghan respectfully greeted from behind. "Your son pays respects to Mother Empress." The empress plucked a flower, holding it in her hand, then coldly asked, "I heard that last night at midnight you brought the Yulan guards running around in the palace. Have you found out anything?" He held up the jade piece for her to see and said, "Mother Empress is perceptive. Your servant has found the person who poisoned it was a palace maid named Dam Hoa. Last night the Jade Orchid Guard found Dam Hoa's body in the well. Upon examining the corpse, it was discovered that she had been knocked unconscious, then thrown into the well to drown. The Jade Orchid Guard searched her body and found this item." Empress Tan looked at the item and coldly asked, "Whose item is this?" "It belongs to Consort Ning," the Crown Prince replied. Hearing this, her face showed a hint of surprise as she asked Consort Ning again. Right after that, she said to the servants, "Summon Consort Ning to Shao Fong Palace." The servants immediately bowed respectfully and obeyed the order. Thus, Consort Ning was brought to Shao Fong Palace. Looking at the palanquin and the servants following showed that this person's status in the palace was not ordinary. The servants slowly helped her step down from the palanquin. In front of her now was Shao Fong Palace. Consort Ning slowly walked into Shao Fong Palace with anxiety, for she was the mother of the fourth Prince Luo Tan. Consort Ning's expression when entering Shao Fong Palace was somewhat unfriendly. She thought to herself, clearly unable to bear children, yet monopolizing the position of empress, not allowing other talented and virtuous women to do so. It's truly ignorant. However, upon entering, she greeted Empress Tan with utmost respect, affectionately greeting the empress. Right after, a palace maid brought up a tray and showed her something. As soon as she saw it, she was startled and frightened. Empress Tan cast a scrutinizing gaze sharp as a laser, coldly asking, "Is this an item from Consort Ning's palace?" Consort Ning anxiously lowered her face and eyes, then replied, "This is an item the Empress Dowager rewarded me last year, your servant. Recently, your servant was tidying up items, but couldn't find it. Your servant thought I had misplaced it myself. Your servant was about to report to the Internal Affairs Office to ask for their help in finding it, but unexpectedly, it has already fallen into the Empress's hands." Hearing this, Empress Tan continued to say, "This jade pendant I found on the body of a palace maid named Dam Hoa." Consort Ning, upon hearing the name Dam Hoa, felt uneasy in her heart, but immediately replied, "Your servant doesn't know this person." Still with that cold expression, Empress Tan continued, "I don't care whether you know this palace made Dam Hoa or not. I only need to know Dam Hoa wanted to poison and harm the crown prince, and Dam Hoa had your jade pendant on her person." Consort Ning fearfully cried out, "Empress." She then said a few words to prove her innocence. "I have never thought about harming the crown prince. I am innocent." The empress coldly repeated the words of Ning Fai, "Innocent." Clearly, these were two words she shouldn't have said in front of the empress. Empress Qin emphasized, "No one in this harem is innocent." Ning Fai hurriedly kowtowed and begged pitifully, "I am truly wronged. I beg the empress to investigate clearly." But obviously, Empress Qin was not a person easily moved, so how could she let it go? She said, "This jade pendant is yours. The evidence of you plotting against the crown prince is here. Yet you still refuse to admit your crime. I cannot forgive you. Guards, take Ning Fai down and give her 30 lashes." As soon as she finished speaking, the maids dragged her down. The harem echoed with pleas for mercy. "Empress, please spare my life." Then the entire palace resounded with screams due to her violent reactions. Ningfei lay on the plank, writhing under the blows that the palace eunuchs were raining down on her. Her mouth kept screaming. Suddenly, the emperor appeared from somewhere, raising his hand and shouting loudly to stop. By now, Ningfei had become a mess, beaten to a pulp, lying and moaning on the plank. Seeing this, the emperor's face showed extreme pity and sorrow for the beautiful woman. He ordered the attendants to take her back to Yinwu Palace and call the imperial doctor to check her wounds. Then he went in to see Empress Qin. Seeing the emperor, she respectfully bowed and affectionately said, "Greetings, Your Majesty." As soon as he met the empress, without beating around the bush, the emperor blurted out, "What mistake did Ningfei make that you had to punish her like that?" However, Empress Qin's ability was not to be underestimated. She calmly replied, "She poisoned the crown prince. Shouldn't she be punished?" The emperor thought he had misheard. With a doubtful look, he asked, "What do you mean by these words?" Then she presented the evidence, the ledger and Danhua's jade pendant, saying these were the proof found of the plot against the crown prince. And this jade belonged to Ningfei. However, the emperor seemed unconvinced. He pondered and said, "Even if this jade really belongs to Ningfei, so what? It still doesn't prove that she instigated Danhua to harm the crown prince. The truth hasn't been fully investigated yet. You've already taken action against Ningfei. Aren't you afraid of causing a scandal?" Empress Qin, unchanged in her thinking, calmly said, "If Your Majesty feels my handling was unfair, Your Majesty can strip me of my position and send me to the cold palace." Hearing this, the emperor angrily shouted, "Don't think I won't dare to do anything to you." Empress Qin remained kneeling there, but her stance was still as firm as a tripod. "I've already said, if you're displeased, feel free to do as you wish." The emperor frowned, showing full displeasure, and said, "Just you wait." After speaking, he turned and left with a swish of his robes. Empress Qin and her servants quickly knelt down. Bowing their heads respectfully, "We bid Your Majesty farewell." After that fiery confrontation just now, the chief palace maid Zhenju worriedly came to help Empress Qin up and said, "Your Majesty, why do you need to be like this? You and the emperor are husband and wife. If you just explain the situation clearly to His Majesty, he will surely stand on your side." Hearing this, Empress Qin found it laughable. Husband and wife. Her eyes suddenly became sharp as she thought to herself, "Between him and me, there has never been any marital affection from beginning to end." She thought painfully, "There wasn't any before, there isn't any now, and there won't be any in the future." Her lonely figure departed. The scene changes to Qingga Palace, Bao Qin calling Miss. She entered gesticulating wildly, pointing here and there, hurriedly as if the house was on fire, reporting to Xiao Hihi, "I heard that Empress has punished consort Ning with 30 lashes. Then the emperor came to rescue her. Otherwise consort Ning would have nearly died. Isn't it terrible?" Xiao Hihi heard this, but said nothing. She just kept eating her food. Bao Qin lost interest seeing this and also ran out of words. She said dejectedly, "Miss, please say something." Xiao Hihi kept chewing without stopping, eating while talking. "What do you want me to say now?" "Indeed, that's right. If I don't know what to say, how can I speak?" Hearing this, Bao Qin burned like fire, furious to the sky. She tried her best to explain to Xiao Hihi, "Facing such cruel palace struggles, you have no motivation to compete for favor. Why do you have to try to climb high? Don't you want to become the future crown princess? You have to become the crown princess so that you can become the empress in the future. Only when you become the empress will you not be bullied pitifully by others like consort Ning." Xiao Hihi heard this, and her face remained calm as she said to Bao Qin, "This is her own doing. If she hadn't harbored evil thoughts, she wouldn't have provoked the empress, making the empress dissatisfied, and she wouldn't have suffered such a miserable beating." Then she concluded, "Therefore, it's still better to be a good salted fish. No need to think too much, not competing for favor, living comfortably. Just stay home, eat well, and wait to die." After saying that, she lay down and hugged her belly happily, saying, "My life is like salted fish. Leaving Bao Cam spite, in Wali clean, Bao Cam felt deeply hurt." Although I don't like philosophy, but this can't be argued with. Suddenly someone walked in and spoke. "You entered the Eastern Palace just to eat well and wait to die." It turned out to be Lacton Han. Tu Hihi and Bao Cam hurriedly knelt down to pay respects. "Greetings to Your Highness the Crown Prince." He ordered Bao Cam to withdraw. She bowed her head and obeyed. But as she left, Bao Cam carried a worried mood and thought to herself, why is it that whenever the crown prince arrives, Tanxie Palace is always so quiet? And every time he comes, they're always discussing important matters. How does he know to choose such timing to enter? Tu He put on a flattering face like Tan Han. This concubine married into the Eastern Palace only because of admiration for your highness's talents. As for eating well and waiting to die, it's just going with the flow. Like Tan Han clearly recognized every word reeking of fake flattery. He just sighed and sat down without rushing to mock her. Tu He went to pour tea and asked His Highness, you seem to be in a good mood today. He replied, Mem, the mood is not bad. Like Tan Han carefully observed Tu He's expression. Red lips slightly pursed, a clever look on her face. Then he said something that made her startled and uneasy. It seems these past few days your complexion has improved, hasn't it? Rosy cheeks and glowing skin. Tu He began to humbly act with fake sincerity, coughing a few times as if weak, then said, this concubine may look normal on the outside, but inside, the kidneys are weak and frail, needing a long time to recover and rest. The crown prince heard this and was at a loss for words. But he wasn't about to let her escape so easily. Like Tan Han said, if your body is healthy now, then let's have you serve in bed. Tu He was startled upon hearing this and started coughing as if about to die. Hearing the two words serve in bed was like a death sentence to her. She hurriedly said to him, Your Highness, please don't joke like this. It's really frightening. But he put on a puzzled face and asked, It's just asking you to serve in bed. What's so frightening about that? Still not understanding how a hero can fall to a beauty's charms. Tu He with teary eyes put on a weak expression and said, This concubine is afraid of pain. Like Tan Han coldly replied, Endure a bit and it will be over. These words were no longer just a slap in the face. It's like a strong attack on her always, haha. Xiao He was extremely angry inside, fire burning fiercely, silently blaming. Just endure a little, and it's over. Is that even the sound of a human voice? Her resentment seemed like it wanted to unleash a great massacre. She trembled, clutching the hem of her dress, then knelt down and continued, Your servant entered the palace only to help the crown prince ascend the throne and become emperor. As for other matters, your servant doesn't want to think about them. At this moment, she looked truly weak and collapsed. Like Tan Han's eyes softened a bit. He reached out his hand, gently lifted her chin, then softly said, But whatever I want, even if you don't want to think about it, you must think about it. Oh my! This is how the male lead takes care of you. Not changing his mind because of a beauty's tears. Continuing with a scrutinizing gaze, Lak Tan Han asked her, You entering this Eastern Palace means you are my woman. Serving me in bed is also a matter of sooner or later. Don't you understand this principle? To achieve anything, you must pay a price. If you want to gain my trust, you must show me your sincerity. Before Xiao He's beauty that could topple kingdoms, he seriously said, If you can't even serve me in bed, then how can I truly trust you? Then he continued, I have explained the poisoning incident to the Zhongwu general. This afternoon, the general will send someone to visit you. Consider this as compensation for helping me drink the poison wine. After saying this, he stood up. The atmosphere became heavy. Xiao He remained in place, bowing her head and saying, Thank you, Your Highness. That afternoon at Qingge Palace, just as Lak Tan Han had said, someone came to visit Xiao He. It was the general's wife and Xiao Zhilan, her younger sister. The two entered and bowed. Your servants pay respects to Xiao Liangfei. Xiao He hurriedly stood up to stop her mother. There are no outsiders here. No need for such formalities. But she was met with an evasive look and attitude from her. She quickly bowed her head and replied, Your servant wouldn't dare. Hearing this, Xiao He felt somewhat disappointed and concerned. However, she didn't approach closer, but only said, Mother, please sit down. Then she turned to order Bao Qin, Quickly bring some food over here. Bao Qin bowed her head in obedience and left. It seemed that immediately flowers, tea, and cakes were laid out. The food was both visually appealing and fragrant. Seeing such food, Xiao Zhilan was extremely delighted. However, her mother quickly stopped her. Xiaolan, we shouldn't eat the food here. Wait until we get home. Mother will prepare even better food for you. Xiao He's face looked a bit sad as she watched her mother comforting her younger sister. Lady Shi spoke up. General, I heard that Xiao Liang attended a birthday celebration and was poisoned. I'm very worried, but the general has been busy lately. Moreover, as an external official, it's not convenient to enter the inner palace. So I asked this divine lady to bring Xiao Lan to see how you're doing. Xiao He politely replied, Thank you for your concern, father and mother. I'm fine now. After a while, Xiao He noticed that the foreheads of both people were very dark, so she hurriedly advised, In the next few days, mother and little sister must not cross that bridge. Remember to heed my warning. The general's wife asked with some confusion why, but this was difficult to explain. Xiao He only replied, Don't ask why. Just remember what I said. But the lady was still anxious and pressed further. But at least you should give me a reason. Xiao He reached into her sleeve for something. She took out 2 talismans and said to them, These are 2 talismans I made for mother and little sister. Keep them carefully and don't lose them. After saying this, she suddenly fell silent for a moment. Bao Kai saw this and came to receive the 2 talismans. Then Bao Kai handed them to the lady and said, My lady, these are self-protection talismans I made. You must not lose them. She received the talismans somewhat reluctantly. Thank you, Xiao Liang, for the gift. After that, no one said anything. The atmosphere became extremely quiet. So Xiao He waved her hand to signal she was tired. You should go back now. Give my regards to father. The 2 stood up, bowed their heads to bid farewell to the divine lady. Then without any lingering, they walked out. Bao Kai, witnessing such a scene, felt it was unfair. She angrily spoke on behalf of her mistress. Young mistress, how could the lady treat you like this? Not a single word of affection. She even deliberately avoided you, as if you were some strange creature. It's too much. Stepping out of the door of Chinga Palace, the lady and Xiao Lan walked silently back. As they walked, she stared intently at the 2 safety talismans in her hand. Then suddenly she threw the 2 talismans Xiao He had just given them to the ground, sarcastically muttering bad luck. Xiao Lan saw her do this and didn't understand the intention. She innocently looked back at the 2 talismans and said, Those are things big sister gave us. We can't throw them away. But the lady turned back and scolded the girl. She is not your big sister. She is a harbinger of death and misfortune. Then she planted her thoughts into Little Lamb's mind. If it weren't for her, your brother wouldn't have died. If we stay close to her, we'll surely be doomed to death. From now on, just ignore her. Even if she gives you anything, you're not allowed to touch it. Little Lamb asked curiously, Isn't brother still alive and well? How could he have been doomed to death? Little Lamb's words were full of innocence. Why did mother say brother died? Madame Tu's face suddenly became sorrowful. She replied, It's not that, brother. You had another brother. He was doomed to death by her as soon as he was born. She is truly a harbinger of death and misfortune. She hugged Little Lamb and continued, Little Lamb, you're still young. There are many things you can't understand yet. When you grow up, mother will explain everything clearly to you. The scene changes to the imperial study. At this moment, Lacton Han is kneeling in the hall, while the emperor is pointing and scolding him. You've already found out who poisoned him. Why didn't you tell me first? Why did you tell the Empress first? Is it that in your heart, I'm not as trustworthy as the Empress? Lacton Han knelt there calmly and replied, Your son had no such intention. But it seemed that the answer did not satisfy the emperor. He frowned and asked, No such intention. Then what was your intention? Third son, I hope you can see clearly. I appointed you as crown prince, not because of your close relationship with the prince, but because you have sufficient ability and strategy. Your character is also steady. But if you continue to team up with the Empress, his eyes lowered, showing disappointment as he continued, I'm afraid this crown prince position will have to change hands. Hearing this, Lacton Han only quietly replied, Your son knows his mistake. The emperor continued, I know you were raised by the Empress, so you are endlessly grateful to the Empress. But after all, the Empress is just a woman from another family. She's not your real relative. Don't let the Empress lead you by the nose and control you into going down the wrong path. You must remember well, you are the crown prince of the Great Prosperity Dynasty. In the future, this empire will be under your rule. You cannot be manipulated by a woman. Do you understand? Lacton Han remained calm and indifferent. He replied mechanically, Your son remembers well. The emperor put his hand on his shoulder, showing trust. I still truly value you. Remember, don't disappoint me. He continued to answer yes like a puppet. His face was full of melancholy. This shows that whether in a royal family or a commoner's household, there are undercurrents that occur between those who call each other husband and wife. The sky was now leaning towards evening. Lacton Han and his servants were walking on the road back to the eastern palace. He suddenly noticed two talismans lying lonely on the ground. Seeing this, Thuong Tsong Tsong approached. Then he bent down to pick them up and handed them to the crown prince. Seeing them, Lacton Han thought to himself, these protective talismans are identical to the two from before that Tu Luong gave me. Where did these two talismans come from? Thinking this, he changed direction towards Tan Xie Palace. Tu He quickly bowed. This servant greets the crown prince. The crown prince slightly raised his hand, signaling her to rise. He showed the two talismans and asked Tu He, are these yours? She looked at them and replied, these are the ones this servant just gave to mother and sister. They are protective talismans. How did they end up in your hands? Lacton Han answered, I just picked them up on the way here. Perhaps they dropped them carelessly while walking. Do you need me to send someone to return them? Tu Yi quickly replied, no need. This response made Lacton Han very confused. Understanding Lacton Han's thoughts, Tu Yi then told him the story. This afternoon, this servant saw that mother and sister had bad luck in their hearts, so I divined for them. It showed that in 2 days, they would encounter an unexpected event on a bridge. Fearing something might happen to them, I gave them protective talismans. But before she could finish, suddenly Lacton Han snatched the two talismans from her hand. He said, if they don't need them, then I do. Just earlier, you still owed me 2 protective talismans. Seeing this, Tu He said, but those 2 protective talismans were thrown on the ground by them. Your Highness doesn't mind. Lacton Han examined the 2 talismans and said gently, something that can save a life is a treasure. I would beg for it if I could. That night, Lacton Han and Tu He had dinner at Tan Xie Palace. Lacton Han finished eating and put down his chopsticks. Then he ordered Thuong Tsong Tsong to go prepare hot water for a bath. Hearing this, she was startled and panicked. Tu He, with a confused and worried mind, thought the crown prince wanted to bathe here. This meant that tonight the crown prince would stay at Tan Xie Palace. What does this mean? Thinking about the night service, her soul wanted to transcend. Even biting a piece of meat no longer tasted good. Completely opposite. Bao Qin was as happy as a new father. Running back and forth, she thought to herself, tonight, the young master will finally be summoned to the bedchamber. Then she hurriedly went to prepare hot water for the prince's bath. The scene changes to the bathroom. Luo Qinghan was soaking in the hot bathtub, completely relaxed. It should be noted that besides his cold, gecko-like face, his body was truly a masterpiece of perfection. After soaking and relaxing for a while, he stood up and put on his clothes. Luo Qinghan's appearance right after bathing could be described as extremely seductive. Yet at this moment, on the bed, Xiao Hi's face darkened. Her whole body stiffened like steel. It felt like there was a statue on the bed rather than a person. Luo Qinghan looked at her and said, I haven't slept yet, but you're already lying down. How improper. Xiao Hi, flustered and blushing, resigned herself. It was like I'm a fish on the chopping board. Chop quickly before it goes bad. She shouted with spirited determination. Do whatever you want to do. Don't pity this humble servant. My skin is thick, my flesh is tough, it's no use. She closed her eyes in resignation and thought to herself, it's just being done, right? Consider it like being bitten by a dog. When it's over, I'll eat more than 2 bowls of rice. I'm truly a hero. It sounds quite brave and righteous, huh? Seeing this behavior, Luo Qinghan didn't want to comment further. He said, help me change my clothes. Xiao Hi, upon hearing this, sprang up immediately like a fresh fish wanting to flop around. Clenching her fists to gather the little courage left, Xiao Hi tearfully thought to herself, I'm about to be eaten, but I still have to serve him and take off his clothes. Being a standard concubine is truly too difficult. Thinking this, but not daring to defy the government, what the prince ordered, she naturally had to obediently do. Xiao Hi stood up to change his clothes. Luo Qinghan's hair was still wet. Water dripped from his hair onto his face, creating an image both elegant and gentle. Very different from the image of the prince walking in the palace with a frozen face. Indeed, seeing this appearance made Xiao Hi think, after bathing, the prince seems to have softened quite a bit. Then she looked at him and also noticed his hair was still wet. Xiao Hi then offered, this humble servant can dry your hair for you. Then she eagerly patted the chair to show her desire. Your Highness, please sit. It's unclear if this way of inviting to sit was for the prince or for inviting a comrade brother to sit. Touching that hair, Xiao He thought the prince's hair was so long and thick. Want to dry, it would certainly take a lot of time to finish. She carefully and meticulously dried his hair bit by bit. But how did she become such a devoted person? Everything has its reason. And the reason for the devotion in meticulously caring for the crown prince's hair was to buy time. At this moment, she was secretly laughing inside and thinking. Perhaps by the time she finished drying his hair, he would be asleep. She thought this time-buying plan was indeed a perfect plan. Just thinking about it made her smile mischievously. Not noticing the differences in Qiu He's mood, Lacton Han spoke up, asking her about an unrelated topic. He asked how her relationship with her parents was going. Qiu He calmly replied that it was still harmonious. Lacton Han seemed to be waiting for just that. He immediately jabbed at her nonchalantly. If it's still harmonious, why did your mother throw away the protective charm you gave her? Hearing this, Qiu He still cheerfully replied to His Highness. Some things are seen through, but can't be spoken. It's enough that one knows in their heart. The Crown Prince calmly said, originally, I thought your family relationships were very good. You've been in the palace for over half a year now. You must miss home very much. So I thought about letting your family come to the palace to visit you. Now it seems I've thought too much. Qiu He lowered her eyes and said wistfully, every family has its difficult scriptures to recite. Your Highness's approach is not wrong. It's this concubine who has issues. He then glanced at her and asked what issues she had. Qiu He gently stroked his hair. She remained silent for a long time without saying anything. After a while, Qiu He's face turned sad. Her eyes were pensive. She hesitantly said, because this concubine is a lonely star of misfortune. As if unburdening herself, Qiu He recounted in one breath. Perhaps it had been a long time since she had been able to express such hidden feelings. This concubine has said before, my fate is very special. In my destiny, there is a lonely star of misfortune. Anyone close to me will encounter misfortune, so everyone in my family avoids me. Lacton Han frowned angrily that